wave hit harder than Lena Ward expected, salt water flooding her mouth as she stumbled backward in the surf. Strong hands caught her waist, steadying her against the current. She looked up into Evan Brooks' concerned face. Her maintenance supervisor, single father, the man she'd barely noticed in 3 years of quarterly reports. But she noticed him now. Noticed the way his wet shirt clung to unexpected muscle, the protective instinct in his grip, the heat that sparked between them despite the cold Pacific water. In that suspended moment, everything changed. CEO and employee, boss and subordinate, woman and man. Before we dive into this story, if you're enjoying the content, please hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The email had arrived on a Tuesday, which Evan Brooks would later recognize as his first warning that the universe was conspiring against his carefully maintained equilibrium. Mandatory attendance, coastal leadership retreat. 3 days. Family welcome. He'd read it twice at his cluttered desk in the maintenance office, surrounded by work orders and the faint smell of industrial cleaner, while his daughter Mia colored princesses at the spare table he'd wedged into the corner. 7 years old and already accustomed to spending afternoons in her father's workplace, she'd looked up with bright eyes when he'd mentioned the beach. "Can we go, Daddy? Please?" And because Evan had learned long ago that he couldn't deny his daughter much of anything, not after her mother had walked out when she was 2, leaving him to figure out single parenthood with nothing but stubbornness and love, he'd said yes. Even though the thought of 3 days trapped with upper management made his teeth ache. Even though mandatory always meant something designed by people who'd never had to arrange childcare or pack lunches with the crust cut off just so. Now standing in the lobby of the Seascape Resort with Mia's hand tucked firmly in his, a backpack full of emergency supplies on his shoulders, Evan wondered if he'd made a catastrophic mistake. The lobby soared 3 stories high, all glass and reclaimed driftwood, designed to make ordinary people feel small. Through the windows, the Pacific Ocean stretched gray-blue and infinite under an April sky. Executives in carefully casual resort wear clustered in conversation circles, their laughter calibrated for networking. Evan recognized most of them from company directories, department heads, VPs, the kind of people who made decisions that trickled down to his work orders. "Daddy, it's so fancy," Mia's whisper held appropriate awe. "It's just a hotel, sweetheart." But he straightened his shoulders anyway, aware of his worn jeans and the slight grease stain on his shirt cuff that hadn't quite come out in the wash. He'd packed his 2 decent button-downs for the retreat sessions, but he'd learned not to waste them on check-in. The registration desk was efficient and indifferent. "Room 347. Here's your key card. Welcome packet. Meal vouchers." The clerk's eyes skipped over him like he was part of the furniture, which was fine. Evan had perfected invisibility over 3 years with the company, the kind of camouflage that let him do his job without complication. They just turned toward the elevators when the crowd shifted, parting with the unconscious deference people showed to power. Lena Ward walked through the lobby like she owned it, which, in a sense, she did. Evan had seen the CEO before, of course. Company meetings, quarterly all-hands, the occasional elevator ride where he'd pressed himself against the wall and studied the floor numbers with intense focus. But he'd never seen her like this. Out of context, traded her usual sharp suits for dark jeans and a cream sweater that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simpler style than the severe bun she wore to the office. Without the armor of corporate formality, she looked younger than her 40-some years. Almost approachable. Almost. She moved with 2 members of her executive team, discussing something with the kind of rapid-fire intensity that Evan recognized from the few times he'd been called to fix something in the C-suite. Her expression was focused, controlled, revealing nothing except competence and command. Mia tugged his hand. "Who's that lady?" "Nobody, sweetheart. Come on, let's find our room." But as they headed for the elevators, Evan felt the weight of observation and glanced back. Lena Ward had paused in her conversation, her gaze fixed on him with an expression he couldn't read. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, long enough for Evan to notice that hers were gray, the color of the ocean outside, before she looked away, returning to her discussion as if he'd never existed. Which was how it should be, how it always was. He shook off the strange flutter in his chest and guided Mia into the elevator. Their room was modest but clean, with 2 double beds and a balcony overlooking the service parking lot rather than the ocean. Evan didn't mind. The Ocean View rooms were for people whose names appeared on organizational charts. He unpacked their things with practiced efficiency, while Mia explored every drawer and closet with the thoroughness of a 7-year-old investigator. "Daddy, there's fancy soap." "Don't use it all, please. Can we go to the beach?" Evan checked his watch. The welcome reception started in 2 hours, which gave them time. "Sure, baby. Let me change your clothes." 20 minutes later, they were on the sand, Mia's delighted shrieks mixing with the cry of gulls as she chased waves that teased the shore. Evan stayed close, hyper-aware of riptides and undertows and all the dangers that parenting had trained him to catalog. But he let her play, let her be 7 and carefree, because moments like this were why he'd said yes to this whole complicated weekend. The beach wasn't crowded yet. A few early arrivals from the retreat wandered the sand in pairs, conducting the kind of networking that never really stopped for people above a certain pay grade. Evan recognized the CFO examining tide pools with performative interest, 2 VPs from operations walking the waterline in intense discussion, and further down the beach, standing alone at the edge of the surf, Lena Ward. She'd changed into athletic wear, running tights and a light jacket, and stood with her arms crossed, staring at the horizon like it held answers to questions she hadn't asked. The wind pulled strands of hair from her ponytail. She looked, Evan thought, profoundly lonely. The observation unsettled him. CEOs weren't supposed to look lonely. They were supposed to be surrounded by admirers and assistants, insulated by success from ordinary human emotions. "Daddy, look!" Mia had found a whole sand dollar, miraculous and intact. She ran to him with it cupped in her palms like treasure. "Can we keep it?" "If it's not broken, sure." "It's perfect." She examined it with serious concentration, then looked up. "That lady is watching us." Evan followed her gaze. Lena Ward had turned from the ocean and was indeed looking their direction, or more accurately, looking at Mia with an expression that seemed almost wistful. Their eyes met again, and this time she didn't look away immediately. Instead, she did something unexpected. She smiled. It transformed her face, softening the executive polish into something genuine. Before Evan could process what was happening, she was walking toward them across the sand. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stare." Her voice was different from the boardroom voice he'd heard in meetings, warmer, with less edge. "I just noticed your daughter found a whole sand dollar. That's pretty rare." Mia, who'd inherited none of her father's social wariness, held it up proudly. "I'm going to keep it forever." "That's a good plan." Lena crouched down to Mia's level with unconscious grace. "I used to collect them when I was your age. I had a whole box of them, but I never found one as perfect as that." "Really?" Mia's eyes went wide. "Did you live at the beach?" "For a while, yes, a long time ago." Something flickered across Lena's face. Memory, maybe, or loss. Then she looked up at Evan, and he saw the exact moment she placed him. Recognition followed by surprise, then something more complicated. "You're with facilities, aren't you?" "Evan Brooks?" The fact that she knew his name stunned him into momentary silence. "Yes, ma'am. Maintenance supervisor." "Lena," she corrected, standing. "We're off the clock." She extended her hand and he shook it, acutely aware of the calluses on his palm against her smooth skin. "I didn't realize you had a daughter." "Company policies don't usually cover family details for my level." He hadn't meant it to sound bitter, but there it was. If she took offense, she didn't show it. "No, I suppose they don't." She looked at Mia again. "How old are you?" 7, Mia supplied helpfully. "My daddy takes care of me all by himself because my mom went away when I was little." "Mia." Evan felt heat crawl up his neck. His daughter's honesty was usually charming, but not when she was sharing their personal business with the CEO. But Lena's expression had gentled. "That must keep your dad very busy. He's the best daddy in the whole world." Mia said it with such fierce conviction that Evan's throat tightened. "I can see that." Lena held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary, and Evan saw something shift in her eyes, a reassessment maybe, or simply acknowledgement. "Well, I should let you two get back to your treasure hunting. I'll see you at the reception?" "Yes, ma'am." "Lena," she repeated with a hint of amusement. Then to Mia, "It was very nice to meet you. Take good care of that sand dollar." She walked away and Evan released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "She's pretty," Mia observed with 7-year-old bluntness. "And she's nice. Is she your boss?" "Something like that." "She seems lonely." Out of the mouths of children. Evan watched Lena's retreating figure, noting the set of her shoulders, the careful distance she maintained from other retreat attendees on the beach. "Yeah, sweetheart. I think maybe she is." The welcome reception was exactly what Evan had expected. An exercise in forced socializing with an open bar and appetizers arranged on tables overlooking the ocean. He dressed in his better shirt, made sure Mia looked presentable in her sundress, and braced himself for 3 hours of being politely ignored. Instead, he found himself in conversation. It started with Karen Chen from HR, who made a beeline for them within minutes of arrival. "Evan, I'm so glad you brought your daughter. We don't get enough families at these things." Mia, coached extensively on handshakes and eye contact, performed admirably. "Nice to meet you, Ms. Chen." "Oh, she's precious," Karen beamed. "How old?" And they were off, Evan fielding the standard questions about single parenthood while Karen made appropriate sympathetic noises. Other people joined: Marco from accounting, whose kids were teenagers, Jennifer from sales, who'd just had her first baby, Tom from IT, who was thinking about starting a family. Suddenly, Evan wasn't the invisible maintenance supervisor, but a parent among parents, connected by the universal language of childcare struggles and sleep deprivation. Mia charmed them all, of course. She had a gift for adults, probably developed from spending so much time in Evan's workplace. She answered questions about school, showed off her sand dollar, asked polite questions in return. Pride swelled in Evan's chest. Whatever else he'd screwed up in life, he'd raised a good kid. "She's wonderful." Evan turned to find Lena Ward standing beside him, holding a glass of white wine and wearing an expression of genuine warmth. "Thank you." He was hyper-aware of the others in their little circle, the way they'd subtly shifted to acknowledge the CEO's presence. "She's had a lot of practice being around grown-ups." I can tell," Lena smiled at Mia. "Are you having fun at the beach?" "So much fun. Daddy said we might see dolphins tomorrow." "The morning tours usually spot them," Lena confirmed. "I've been on them before. They're worth the early wake-up." "Can we go, Daddy? Please?" Evan checked the schedule in his head. "The morning session starts at 9. We'd have to be back by—" "The sessions are optional," Lena interrupted gently. "Family time is more important. I'll make sure it's noted that you're excused." The casual exercise of power, reshaping his schedule with a sentence, should have bothered him. Instead, he felt only gratitude. "That's very kind of you." "It's reasonable." She took a sip of wine, her eyes scanning the room before returning to him. "I meant what I said earlier. We don't see enough families at these events. It's good that you brought her." "I didn't have much choice. Childcare for 3 days would cost more than my room deposit." He regretted the words immediately. Too honest, too revealing of the gap between her world and his. But Lena didn't flinch. "Then I'm glad the policy allows it." She paused, seemed to consider something, then added, "I actually pushed for that change 2 years ago. The old leadership team thought it was too complicated, too much liability, but it seemed cruel to force people to choose between career development and their children." Evan stared at her. "You changed the policy?" "I suggested it. The board approved it." She said it matter-of-factly, like reshaping company culture was just another item on a to-do list. "Not everyone takes advantage of it, but I'm glad you did." Before Evan could formulate a response, the event coordinator called for attention. Time for the welcome remarks, the overview of the weekend's activities. The mandatory team-building exercise reveals that made everyone groan internally. Lena excused herself with an apologetic smile and moved to the front of the room, her corporate persona sliding back into place like armor. Evan watched her deliver the welcome speech, polished, confident, hitting all the expected notes about collaboration and innovation and strategic thinking. But now he saw the person beneath the performance, the woman who'd crouched in the sand to admire his daughter's treasure, who'd changed company policy because it was the right thing to do. Dangerous thinking. He pulled his attention back to Mia, who was starting to yawn despite her best efforts to stay interested in the grown-up talk. "Ready for bed, sweetheart?" She nodded against his shoulder, and he made their excuses to the group, threading through the crowd toward the exit. As they passed near the front, Lena's eyes found his across the room. She didn't pause in her speech, didn't acknowledge him publicly, but something passed between them. A moment of connection, of understanding. Evan carried his drowsy daughter out into the cool evening air and tried not to think about what it might mean. Morning came with Mia bouncing on his bed at 6 a.m., sand dollar clutched in one hand, and pure excitement radiating from every pore. "Daddy, dolphins, you promised!" I said, "Maybe dolphins," he groaned, but he was already getting up because this was his life now. Early mornings and broken sleep and the kind of exhaustion that felt like love. They made it to the Dolphin Tour dock by 7, Evan carrying 2 travel mugs of coffee from the room's machine and Mia wearing her favorite sea turtle t-shirt. The boat was small, meant for maybe 20 passengers, and Evan had expected it to be full of other early rising retreat attendees. Instead, they found 3 other families, a retired couple, and Lena Ward. She stood at the boat's rail in jeans and a windbreaker, her hair in a simple braid, looking younger and more relaxed than Evan had ever seen her. When she spotted them, her face lit up with what seemed like genuine pleasure. "You made it!" Somebody woke me up at dawn," Evan said dryly, ruffling Mia's hair. "I wanted to see the dolphins." "Well, you're in the right place." Lena crouched down again, apparently her preferred position for talking to children. "I've done this tour 5 times, and I've seen them every single time. They like to play in the boat's wake." "Really?" Mia's eyes went wide. "Really? Want to sit up front with me? That's where you get the best view." She looked to Evan for permission, and he nodded, bemused by this version of his CEO. Casual, warm, seemingly happy to spend her morning with a 7-year-old chatterbox. Lena led Mia to the front of the boat, pointing out features of the coastline, answering endless questions with patient good humor. Evan followed, coffee in hand, feeling oddly like he'd stepped into someone else's life. The tour guide, a weathered man named Jack who'd clearly done this 1,000 times, gave his safety spiel and they set off, the boat cutting through calm morning water. The coast receded, all cliffs and cypress trees and expensive houses perched on promontories. Mia pressed against the rail, vibrating with anticipation. "You didn't have to do this," Evan said quietly to Lena. "Spend your morning entertaining my daughter." She glanced at him, surprised. "I'm not doing it out of obligation. I like her." A pause. "And honestly, this is the most relaxed I've felt since we arrived. No networking, no strategy discussions, just this." The wind had brought color to her cheeks, pulled more hair loose from her braid. She looked, Evan thought, beautiful. Not in the polished, untouchable way she looked in board meetings, but in a more essential way, human and present and real. "There!" Mia shrieked. "Daddy, look!" A pod of dolphins had appeared, their sleek bodies arcing through the water alongside the boat. 7 or 8 of them, playing in the wake exactly as Lena had promised. They leaped and dove with what looked like pure joy, and Mia's laughter mixed with the cries of seabirds and the boat's engine. "They're dancing!" Mia bounced on her toes, and Lena steadied her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "They do look like they're dancing, don't they?" For 20 minutes they watched the dolphins play, and Evan watched his daughter's wonder, and felt something in his chest that had been locked tight for years begin to ease. This was why he'd said yes to the retreat, not for networking or career advancement, but for moments like this, Mia's joy, the ocean, the unexpected gift of a morning that felt like magic. When the dolphins finally moved on, Mia turned to Lena with shining eyes. "That was the best thing ever." "I agree." Lena's smile was soft, unguarded. "Thank you for letting me share it with you." On the way back to shore, Mia fell asleep against Evan's shoulder, exhausted by excitement and the early wake-up. Lena sat beside them, her own gaze distant as she watched the coastline approach. "Can I ask you something?" Evan kept his voice low, mindful of his sleeping daughter. "Of course." "Why are you here? At this retreat, I mean. Most CEOs send a VP to these things." She was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I used to, but I realized I was losing touch with the company, with the actual people who make everything work. It's easy to forget from the executive floor that every decision affects real lives, real families. She glanced at Mia. I didn't want to be that kind of leader. So you torture yourself with mandatory team building? That startled a laugh from her. Something like that. She met his eyes. Although this morning wasn't torture. This morning was perfect. Something in the way she said it made Evan's pulse quicken. He told himself he was imagining the weight behind the words, the possibility hanging in the air between them. Told himself that a woman like Lena Ward, successful, sophisticated, living in a completely different world, wouldn't look at a man like him with anything more than friendly courtesy. But the way she held his gaze suggested otherwise. The boat docked, and the spell broke. They disembarked with the other passengers, Mia waking enough to walk but clinging sleepily to Evan's hand. Lena walked beside them up the pier, and Evan was acutely aware of the picture they must make. Like a family. Like three people who belong together. I should let you get her some breakfast, Lena said when they reached the resort. But she didn't move to leave, didn't slip back into CEO mode. We're going to grab something from the buffet. Evan hesitated, then decided to be brave. You're welcome to join us, if you want. Her smile was answer enough. Up. Breakfast became lunch, became an afternoon at the pool, the schedule dissolving as easily as sugar and water. Lena had cleared her calendar, another casual exercise of executive power, and showed no signs of wanting to be anywhere else. She swam with Mia, taught her to float on her back, listened to endless stories about school and friends, and the hamster in Mia's classroom named Mr. Squeakers. And she talked to Evan. Real conversation, not the careful professional exchanges he was used to. She asked about his work, his daughter, his life, and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. He learned that she'd grown up in Santa Barbara, spent summers at the beach, lost her mother young, that she'd worked her way through business school, built her career with fierce determination, and sometimes wondered what she'd sacrificed along the way. I always thought I'd have children, she said, watching Mia practice her floating. They sat on the pool's edge, their legs dangling in the water. But then there was never time. Always another project, another promotion, another crisis. And then suddenly, I was 42 and alone. The vulnerability in her voice made Evan's heart ache. It's not too late. Isn't it? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I don't even know if I'd be a good parent. I work 80-hour weeks. My last relationship ended because I missed his birthday dinner for a board meeting. Being a good parent isn't about perfect attendance, Evan said quietly. It's about showing up when it matters. And from what I've seen today, you'd be great at it. She looked at him then, really looked, and Evan saw something shift in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or hope. That's kind of you to say. It's true. They sat in companionable silence, watching Mia play. The sun was warm on Evan's shoulders, the chlorine smell mixing with sunscreen and the distant salt of the ocean. He felt more relaxed than he had in months, maybe years. Being around Lena was easy in a way that surprised him. No pretense, no performance, just two people finding common ground. Daddy! Mia paddled over, her face serious. Miss Lena said she doesn't know how to build sandcastles. Can we teach her? Evan raised an eyebrow at Lena, who shrugged with mock helplessness. It's true. I was always more of a bookworm. This is a serious gap in your education, Evan said solemnly. We'll have to fix it immediately. So they spent the rest of the afternoon on the beach, building an elaborate castle complete with moat and towers and a bridge made of driftwood. Lena threw herself into the project with surprising enthusiasm, following Mia's instructions with exaggerated seriousness that made them all laugh. She got sand in her hair, on her clothes, under her nails, and didn't seem to care. It's perfect, Mia declared when they'd finished, standing back to admire their work. It really is. Lena's voice was soft. She looked at Evan over Mia's head, and something passed between them again, that spark of connection, of possibility. The sun was starting to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Other retreat attendees had appeared on the beach, preparing for the evening bonfire that was on the official schedule. Evan knew he should probably make an appearance, do some networking, play the corporate game. But he didn't want to. He wanted to stay here, in this bubble of unexpected happiness, with his daughter building castles, and this fascinating woman who somehow didn't feel like a stranger anymore. "There's a bonfire tonight," Lena said, as if reading his mind. "We should probably show our faces." Probably. Although, she hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "I was thinking of skipping it. There's supposed to be a meteor shower later, better viewing away from the fire." It was an invitation, a clear one. Evan should say no. Should recognize the complications, the power dynamic, the 100 ways this could go wrong. Should protect himself and his daughter from the inevitable disappointment when this weekend bubble burst and reality reasserted itself. But Mia was looking at him with hopeful eyes, and Lena was waiting with an expression that seemed almost nervous, and Evan realized he was tired of protecting himself, tired of playing it safe, tired of being invisible. "A meteor shower sounds perfect," he said. Lena's smile could have lit the darkening sky. They grabbed dinner from the resort restaurant, sandwiches and fruit that they took back to the beach, finding a spot far from the bonfire's glow. Mia chattered happily through the meal, her earlier nap giving her a second wind. When she finally wound down, she curled up on the blanket between them, using Evan's leg as a pillow. "She's going to crash hard tonight," Evan murmured, stroking her hair. "She had a big day." Lena watched Mia with soft eyes. "You're really good with her." "I've had a lot of practice being both parents. Still, it can't be easy." "No." He was quiet for a moment. "But I wouldn't trade it. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even if the circumstances weren't ideal." Her mother... Lena stopped. "I'm sorry. That's too personal." "It's okay." Surprisingly, it was. Lauren left when Mia was 2, said she wasn't cut out for motherhood, that she felt trapped. I was angry for a long time, but now I just feel sorry for her. She's missing out on this amazing kid. "Do you ever hear from her?" "Birthday cards sometimes, child support when she remembers." He shrugged. "It's better this way, honestly. Mia deserves people who are all in, not halfway out the door. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her." He looked down at his daughter's peaceful face. "She made me better, forced me to grow up, get my life together. Before she was born, I was drifting. Now I have purpose." "That's a beautiful way to look at it." They fell silent, watching the stars emerge one by one. The ocean provided ambient sound, waves and wind, and the distant party on the beach. Mia's breathing had evened out into sleep. "Can I ask you something?" Lena's voice was tentative. "Why maintenance? You're clearly smart, capable. You could probably do a lot of different things." Evan considered the question. "Honest answer, it's stable. Good benefits, predictable hours, mostly. After Mia was born and Lauren left, I needed something solid. Maintenance supervisor pays enough to support us, has decent health care, lets me be home for dinner most nights. It's not glamorous, but it works. Do you like it?" "Some days." He was surprised by his own honesty. "I'm good at fixing things, solving problems. There's satisfaction in that. But do I dream about HVAC systems and electrical work? No." "What would you do? If you could do anything?" The question hung in the warm night air. Evan thought about the structural engineering degree he'd abandoned halfway through, the design work he used to love, the plans he'd had before life had intervened. "I used to want to build things," he admitted. "Real things. Buildings, bridges. I was in engineering school when Lauren got pregnant. Had to drop out, get a job with benefits." He smiled ruefully. "That's life, right? You make choices. Not always the ones you'd make for yourself." Something in her tone made him look at her. "What would you do? If you could do anything?" She laughed, but it sounded sad. "That's the thing. I am doing what I always wanted. CEO by 40 was my goal. I achieved it." She drew her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. "But sometimes I wonder if I wanted it for the right reasons, if I was running towards something or away from something." "Away from what?" "Being ordinary, being forgettable." She stared at the ocean. "My father left when I was 8, just packed up one day and disappeared. My mother worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and I watched her struggle and promised myself I'd never be in that position. I'd be powerful, successful, important. And you are. And I'm alone. The words came out flat, factual. I have a beautiful house I'm never in, a corner office with a view I don't look at, and a calendar full of obligations to people I don't really know. Success, right? Evan shifted carefully, mindful of his sleeping daughter. Lena. I'm sorry. She shook her head. I don't talk about this. With anyone. Why are you talking about it with me? She turned to look at him, and in the starlight her eyes were dark and serious. Because you're real. Because you're here with your daughter building sandcastles and watching meteor showers, and you seem genuinely happy, because talking to you feels easy in a way nothing else has for a very long time. The moment stretched between them, loaded with possibility. Evan was aware of every detail, the wind in her hair, the vulnerable curve of her mouth, the way she was looking at him like he mattered, like he was someone worth seeing. Look, Mia mumbled, still half asleep. A shooting star. They both looked up. Sure enough, a streak of light was crossing the sky, followed by another, then another. The meteor shower had begun. Make a wish, Lena whispered. But Evan was looking at her instead of the stars and thinking that he didn't need wishes, that everything he wanted was right here, impossibly close and impossibly complicated. They watched the sky for an hour, pointing out meteors, counting them in quiet voices while Mia slept between them. And if their hands brushed sometimes when they pointed, if the space between them seemed to shrink degree by degree, neither of them acknowledged it. Not yet. But the air was charged with awareness, with the kind of possibility that made Evan's heart race. And when they finally gathered their things to head back to the resort, when Lena helped him carry the sleeping Mia, their eyes met in the darkness and held. Something had shifted. Something had begun. And Evan, who'd spent 3 years invisible and content to be so, suddenly felt very, very seen. Back at the resort, they stood in the lobby with Mia drowsing against Evan's shoulder, neither quite ready to say goodnight. Thank you, Lena said softly. For today. For letting me be part of it. Thank you for wanting to be. Tomorrow there's a team dinner. Formal, unfortunately. She made a face. But maybe after, if you're not too tired. There's supposed to be good tide pools down the South Beach. Mia might like them. It was another invitation, another step forward. We'd like that, Evan said. Her smile was worth everything, bright and genuine and just for him. Good night, Evan. Good night, Mia. She walked toward the elevators, and Evan watched her go, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. I like her, Daddy, Mia murmured against his neck. Yeah, sweetheart. Me too. In his room, tucking Mia into bed, Evan tried to be rational, tried to remember all the reasons this was complicated, potentially problematic, maybe even dangerous to his job security. But all he could think about was the way Lena had looked at the stars, the way she'd laughed building sandcastles, the way she'd held his gaze and made him feel like he was someone worth knowing. He fell asleep thinking about gray eyes and meteor showers and the warmth of possibility blooming in his chest like spring. The morning sun filtering through the curtains found Evan already awake, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince himself that yesterday had actually happened, that he'd spent an entire day with Lena Ward, not the CEO, just Lena, building sandcastles and watching stars like they were two ordinary people discovering each other. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from an unknown number. Good morning. I hope Mia slept well. Looking forward to tonight. L. He read it 3 times, his pulse doing something complicated in his throat. She'd somehow gotten his number, which shouldn't have surprised him. CEOs had ways of getting what they wanted. But the casual intimacy of the message, the way she'd signed it with just her initial, made his chest tight with something that felt dangerously like hope. She's still asleep, wore herself out. Tonight sounds great. He hesitated, then added, looking forward to it too. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, me too. More than I probably should. Evan stared at that last message, his mind racing through implications and complications. Before he could formulate a response, Mia stirred in the other bed, blinking sleepily at the sunlight. Morning, Daddy. Morning, baby. How'd you sleep? I dreamed about dolphins. She sat up, her hair a wild tangle. Are we going to see Ms. Lena today? Tonight. She's working during the day. Oh. Mia's face fell, then brightened. Can we practice our sandcastle so we can make an even better one next time? Next time. As if this weekend would extend beyond its 3-day limit, as if the connection forming between them had permanence. Evan wanted to caution her, to manage expectations, but he couldn't bring himself to dim her enthusiasm. Sure, sweetheart. Let's get some breakfast first. The resort restaurant was crowded with retreat attendees, and Evan felt the shift immediately. Yesterday, he'd been absorbed in Lena's company, insulated from the corporate dynamics. Today, walking in alone with Mia, he was acutely aware of being the maintenance supervisor among directors and VPs. Several people nodded politely, but their eyes slid past him, dismissing him as unimportant. Evan, over here! Karen Chen waved from a table near the windows where she sat with Marco from accounting and 2 people Evan didn't recognize. Grateful for the friendly face, he guided Mia over. I was hoping I'd see you, Karen said warmly. Mia, sweetheart, there's a kids' activity session starting in an hour. Arts and crafts on the beach. Would you like to go? Mia looked to Evan for permission, her eyes hopeful. Can I, Daddy? If you want to. He felt a mix of relief and guilt. Relief at having a few hours to himself, guilt at being relieved. I'll walk you down and make sure it's supervised properly. It's run by a professional childcare service, one of the other women said. Very reputable. My son went yesterday and loved it. As Mia chattered with Karen about what crafts they might make, Evan's attention was pulled to the restaurant entrance. Lena had just walked in with her executive team, 3 men in polo shirts and khakis, carrying themselves with the easy confidence of people who'd never questioned their place in any room. She was laughing at something one of them said, her professional persona firmly in place. Their eyes met across the restaurant. For a heartbeat, her smile faltered, something more genuine flickering across her face. Then someone at her table said something, drawing her attention, and the moment passed. Evan turned back to his own table, reminding himself that this was reality, that Lena had a job to do, responsibilities that didn't include spending her day with a maintenance supervisor and his daughter, that yesterday had been an aberration, a brief escape from the normal order of things. She seems really interested in you. He blinked at Karen, who was watching him with knowing eyes. Who? Lena Ward. I saw you 2 yesterday at the pool, and the way she just looked at you. Karen smiled. I've worked here 5 years, and I've never seen her look at anyone like that. We just talked. Evan kept his voice neutral, aware of the others listening. She was nice to Mia. I toa. Karen's tone suggested she wasn't buying it, but she let it drop. Well, the team building session started in an hour. Please tell me you're not actually doing the ropes course. I was planning to skip it actually, maybe get some work done. It wasn't quite a lie. He did have emails to answer, work orders to review remotely. Smart man, I'm hiding in the spa. Sometimes management has the right idea about these retreats. After breakfast, Evan walked Mia to the kids' activity session, checked credentials, made sure she was comfortable, and extracted a promise that she'd stay where the counselors could see her. Then, he found himself alone for the first time in recent memory, wandering back through the resort with no particular destination. He ended up in the business center, a quiet room with computers and printers where he could pretend to work while his mind circled back obsessively to gray eyes and soft smiles and the impossible situation he was walking into. His phone buzzed. Lena again. Stuck in strategic planning session. Send help. Or coffee. Preferably both. He smiled despite himself. I thought CEOs lived for strategic planning. CEOs lie. Currently listening to 30-minute presentation on synergistic paradigm shifts. May not survive. Sounds serious. Should I call 911? Only if they can rescue me without anyone noticing. How's Mia? Beach crafts, making something that will definitely get glitter everywhere. Perfect. She'll love it. You're getting some time to yourself? Supposed to be working. Actually texting you instead. There was a longer pause before her response came through. I like that you're texting me instead. Evan's heart did that complicated thing again. He was about to respond when he heard voices in the hallway, several people from the executive team, heading toward the business center. He shoved his phone in his pocket and pulled up a spreadsheet on the computer, suddenly very interested in HVAC maintenance schedules. The executives filed in, talking animatedly about the morning session. They barely glanced at Evan as they claimed computers and continued their discussion. He kept his head down, invisible again, and told himself it was safer this way. His phone buzzed once more. He checked it discreetly under the desk. Thinking about tonight. About showing Mia the tide pools. About spending more time with you. And then, a moment later, is this crazy? Tell me if this is crazy. Evan looked around the business center at the executives who hadn't even noticed his presence, at the careful hierarchy that governed every interaction. Then he thought about Lena building sandcastles with sand in her hair, about the way she'd talked under the stars, about the loneliness he'd seen in her eyes. Maybe a little crazy, he typed back, but I don't want it to stop. Me neither. See you tonight? Definitely. He slipped his phone away and tried to focus on actual work, but his concentration was shot. All he could think about was how many hours until sunset, until he could see her again, until they could exist in that bubble where titles and positions didn't matter. The morning crawled by. He answered emails, reviewed reports, checked in with Mia twice. The kids' activity session was going well. She was making a shell mobile and had already made 3 new friends. Her easy adaptability never ceased to amaze him. Around noon, he grabbed lunch from the resort cafe and took it out to a quiet corner of the grounds, finding a bench overlooking a garden. He was halfway through his sandwich when he heard footsteps on the path. Mind if I join you? Lena stood there in her business casual, holding a salad container and looking slightly uncertain. Behind her professional exterior, Evan could see traces of stress. Tight shoulders, a crease between her eyebrows. Please. He moved over to make room on the bench. She sat with a small sigh of relief, setting down her salad but not immediately opening it. For a moment they just sat in comfortable silence, listening to the fountain and the distant sound of the ocean. Rough morning? Evan asked. Long morning. Sometimes I wonder why we spend so much time talking about work when we could just do the work. She rubbed her temples. Sorry. I shouldn't complain. Why not? Even CEOs are allowed to have frustrating days. Not in front of employees, usually. I'm not just an employee right now. The words came out before he could think better of them. Am I? Lena turned to look at him, her gray eyes searching his face. No, she said quietly. You're not. The weight of that acknowledgement hung between them. Evan knew he should probably say something responsible, something about maintaining professional boundaries. Instead, he said, You look tired. When's the last time you actually took a break? Define break. Time when you're not working, not thinking about work, not pretending to take a break while secretly checking email. She smiled ruefully. It's been a while. She finally opened her salad, picking at it without much interest. I used to be better at it, at having a life outside the office. But somewhere along the way, work became the life. Everything else fell away. It's not too late to get it back. Isn't it? She set down her fork. I'm 42 years old, Evan. I've spent 20 years building this career. I don't know how to be anything else anymore. You were something else yesterday, with Mia, at the beach. You weren't the CEO then. I was just me. She said it like it was a revelation. I haven't been just me in so long, I'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Evan took a chance, reached over and covered her hand with his. Her fingers were cool, slender, and they curled into his palm like they belonged there. You can be just you with us, he said. No performance required. She looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. This is complicated. I know. You work for me. There are policies, power dynamics, a dozen reasons this is a terrible idea. I know that too. And yet, here we are. She didn't pull her hand away. What are we doing, Evan? I don't know. He was honest because she deserved honesty. But I know I haven't felt this way in a long time. Maybe ever. And I think you might feel the same. I do. The admission seemed to cost her something. That's what scares me. I'm not good at this. At personal connections, at letting people in. I'm good at spreadsheets and strategy and keeping everything under control. Life's not a spreadsheet. No. She laughed, but it was shaky. It's messy and unpredictable and terrifying. Also beautiful. Also worth it. Lena was quiet for a long moment, her thumb tracing small circles on his palm. I don't want to hurt you, or Mia. You both deserve better than someone who doesn't know how to do this properly. How about you let us decide what we deserve? Evan kept his voice gentle. And maybe give yourself a chance to figure out how to do this. You might surprise yourself. You have a lot of faith in me. You changed company policies so employees could bring their kids to retreats. You spent yesterday building sandcastles and watching meteor showers instead of networking. You texted me this morning even though you probably had 100 more important things to do. He squeezed her hand. Yeah, I have faith in you. You just need to have some in yourself. She blinked rapidly, and Evan realized with surprise that her eyes were bright with unshed tears. How are you real? What do you mean? You're kind and honest and good with your daughter, and you don't seem to want anything from me except me. She shook her head. I'm not used to that. Then get used to it. He smiled. Fair warning, I'm pretty persistent when I care about something. I'm starting to see that. She took a shaky breath, collecting herself. I should get back. We have another session this afternoon. And I need to check on Mia. But neither of them moved immediately. They sat there, hands still linked, neither quite ready to break the moment. Finally, Lena stood, but she didn't let go of his hand. She looked down at him with an expression that was tender and terrified in equal measure. Tonight, she said, tide pools. 7 o'clock? We'll be there. She leaned down and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek, so brief it might not have happened, except for the warmth that lingered on his skin. Then she was walking away, back straight and professional, leaving Evan sitting on the bench with his heart pounding and his world tilting on its axis. He touched his cheek where she'd kissed him and allowed himself a moment of pure, uncomplicated happiness before reality could intrude. The afternoon passed in a blur of picking up Mia from her activity session, where she proudly showed him a Shell Mobile that was indeed covered in glitter, grabbing an early dinner and getting her changed into clothes suitable for beach exploration. She was bouncing with excitement about seeing Lena again, asking a dozen questions about tide pools and what they might find. Why do you like Ms. Lena so much? Evan asked as he helped her into her jacket. Mia thought about it seriously. She talks to me like I'm a real person, not just a kid. And she makes you smile, Daddy. You don't smile like that usually. Out of the mouths of children, indeed. How do I usually smile? Like you're trying really hard, but with her it's like you forget to try. She looked up at him with knowing eyes that seemed far too old for 7. That's better. Evan crouched down to her level. You know that Miss Lena and I are just friends, right? And that even if we were more than friends someday, it would be complicated because she's my boss. I know about complicated. Emma from school's parents are divorced and she has 2 houses. That's complicated. Mia tilted her head. But she says it's okay because everyone's trying to make it work. Are you and Miss Lena going to try? I don't know, baby. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? I like her. Mia said it simply, definitively. And I want you to have someone who makes you happy. You're always taking care of me. You should have someone to take care of you too. Evan pulled his daughter into a tight hug, overwhelmed by her wisdom and generosity. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just finally noticed. She giggled and hugged him back, then pulled away. Can we go now? I don't want to be late. They headed down to the beach as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The South Beach was quieter than the main swimming area, rockier and more dramatic. Tide pools dotted the shoreline, each one a tiny ecosystem waiting to be explored. Lena was already there, changed into jeans and a faded Stanford sweatshirt that made her look younger, more approachable. She'd brought a beach bag that, when opened, revealed flashlights, a field guide to tide pool creatures, and a thermos of hot chocolate. You came prepared, Evan said, impressed. I may have done some research during the afternoon session. She grinned, unrepentant. Mia, ready to see some amazing stuff? For the next hour, they explored the tide pools as the light faded, discovering tiny crabs and sea anemones and bright orange starfish. Lena proved to be a surprisingly enthusiastic guide, reading descriptions from the field guide and helping Mia spot creatures hiding in the crevices. Her earlier stress had melted away, replaced by genuine delight in Mia's wonder. "Look at this one." Mia pointed to a particularly large starfish, purple and magnificent. "That's an ochre star," Lena read from the guide. "They can have up to 24 arms, but this one has 5. Want to touch it gently? They feel really interesting." Mia reached out tentatively, her face lighting up. "It's bumpy and kind of squishy." Evan watched them together. Lena crouched beside his daughter with salt spray in her hair and no trace of the CEO about her, and felt something settle in his chest. This wasn't just attraction or chemistry. This was possibility. This was the shape of something that could be real if they were brave enough to reach for it. "Your turn, Daddy." Mia waved him over. He knelt beside them in the shallow water, and Lena guided his hand to the starfish. Their fingers brushed in the process, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she let their hands rest there together, touching the creature and each other. "Amazing, right?" Her voice was soft, meant just for him. "Yeah." But he wasn't looking at the starfish. He was looking at her, at the way the fading light caught in her eyes, at the small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Amazing. Mia didn't notice the moment between them, already moving to the next tide pool. But Lena held his gaze for a beat longer, her expression open in a way he was beginning to recognize. The way she looked when she let her guard down, when she stopped being the CEO and just existed in the moment. "Thank you for this," she said quietly, "for including me, for not making me feel like I don't belong here. You do belong, with us." He said it simply, meaning it absolutely. She looked like she wanted to say something, but Mia's excited shout interrupted them. "There's a whole family of hermit crabs over here!" They spent another half hour exploring before the light got too dim and Mia started to tire. They rinsed their hands in the ocean, dried off with the towels Lena had thought to bring, and headed back toward the resort. Mia walked between them, holding both their hands, chattering about everything they'd seen. To any observer, they would have looked like a family. The thought should have scared Evan. It was too soon, too complicated, too many things could go wrong. But instead, it just felt right. At the resort entrance, reality began to intrude. Other retreat attendees were gathering for the evening's formal dinner, dressed in business casual and carrying on the endless networking that these events demanded. Evan saw Lena's shoulders tense almost imperceptibly as she registered the crowd. "I should go change," she said, her voice shifting slightly toward her professional register. "The dinner starts in an hour." "Are you going?" Mia asked, disappointed. "I have to." Lena crouched down to Mia's level. "It's part of my job, but I had such a wonderful time with you today. Thank you for showing me the tide pools." "You're welcome." Mia hugged her impulsively, and Evan saw Lena's surprise melt into something tender as she hugged back. "Will we see you tomorrow?" "I hope so." Lena straightened, meeting Evan's eyes over Mia's head. "There's a team hike in the morning, up to the lighthouse point. I'll be there if you want to come." "We'll be there," Evan confirmed. Lena smiled, started to walk away, then turned back. "Evan?" "Yeah?" She seemed to wrestle with something, then decided, "Would you save me a dance? At the dinner? They always do dancing afterward, and I'd rather not spend the whole night fending off awkward conversations." It was a small thing, this request. But the way she asked it, slightly nervous, hopeful, made it feel enormous. "I'd love to," Evan said. Her smile could have powered the whole resort. "See you soon, then." She walked into the lobby, and Evan watched her go, already anticipating the evening ahead. Mia tugged his hand. "Daddy, you need to wear your nice shirt, the blue one that makes your eyes look pretty." "My eyes look pretty?" "That's what Grandma always says." Mia was already pulling him toward the elevators. "And you should wear that cologne you got for Christmas, the one you never use." "Since when are you a fashion consultant?" "Since you have a fancy dinner date with Miss Lena." She gave him a look that was pure sass. "You want to look nice, don't you?" He couldn't argue with 7-year-old logic. "Yeah, baby, I do." Back in their room, Evan showered and changed while Mia supervised, offering running commentary on his wardrobe choices. He ended up in dark slacks and the blue shirt she'd recommended, feeling simultaneously overdressed and underprepared for whatever the evening would bring. "You look handsome, Daddy." Mia's approval was genuine. "Thanks, sweetheart." He checked his reflection one more time, barely recognizing the man looking back, nervous, hopeful, alive in a way he hadn't been in years. "You sure you'll be okay? I can skip the dinner if you want." "I'm fine. The babysitter is nice, and she said we can watch a movie." The resort had arranged childcare for the evening, another policy change Lena had implemented. "You should go dance with Miss Lana." The babysitter arrived right on time, a cheerful college student named Amy, who came highly recommended. Evan gave her all his contact information, showed her where everything was, extracted promises from Mia about bedtime, and finally forced himself out the door. The dinner was held in the resort's largest banquet room, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the moonlit ocean. Round tables were set with crisp linens and elegant place settings. A small band was setting up in the corner. Evan recognized most of the attendees from the company directory: directors, VPs, senior managers, the kind of people who made 5 times his salary and wielded actual power. He felt immediately out of place. "Evan, there you are!" Karen Chen appeared at his elbow, resplendent in a cocktail dress. "Come sit with us. We've claimed a table by the windows." She led him to a table where Marco and several others from their breakfast group had gathered. They welcomed him warmly, pulling him into easy conversation about the day's activities, their kids, vacation plans. Gradually, Evan's tension eased. These were just people, he reminded himself. Titles didn't make them fundamentally different. Except they did, whispered a voice in his head. They had security and status and options he didn't have. If things went wrong with Lena, they'd be fine. He'd be the one looking for a new job. He shoved the thought away and tried to focus on the conversation. Lena entered with her executive team, and the room's energy shifted subtly. Conversations continued, but Evan noticed people tracking her movement, angling for a chance to speak with her. She handled it all with practiced grace, smiling and chatting as she made her way to the head table. Their eyes met across the room. She smiled, and something in Evan's chest loosened. Whatever complications existed, that smile was real. This thing between them was real. Dinner was excellent, some kind of fish with locally sourced vegetables, accompanied by speeches from various executives about teamwork and innovation. Evan ate mechanically, aware of Lena at the head table, but forcing himself not to stare. After the meal, the tables were cleared to the sides and the band started playing. Evan was considering whether he could slip away early when he felt a presence beside him. "I believe you promised me a dance." He turned to find Lena standing there, one hand extended. Up close, he could see she'd changed into a simple black dress that somehow made her look both elegant and approachable. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. "I did." He took her hand, very aware of the eyes on them as he led her to the dance floor. The band was playing something slow and jazzy. Evan placed his hand on her waist, felt her hand settle on his shoulder, and tried to remember how to breathe normally. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi yourself." They began to move, and Evan was grateful for the ballroom dancing class his mother had insisted he take in high school. "You clean up nice." "So do you." Mia was right about the blue shirt. "You talked to Mia about my shirt?" "She may have texted me fashion advice." Lena's eyes danced with amusement. "From your phone." "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. It was adorable." She moved closer, and Evan caught the scent of her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "She's wonderful, Evan. You've done an amazing job with her." "I just try to show up every day. The rest kind of figures itself out." "That's more than a lot of people manage." They swayed together, and Lena rested her head briefly against his shoulder. "This is nice. I can't remember the last time I actually enjoyed one of these events." Evan was acutely aware of the room around them, the other couples dancing, the executives watching. People are staring. Let them. But he felt tension creep into her shoulders. "Although I suppose we should talk about that. About what people might think." "What do you want them to think?" She was quiet for a moment, then, "The truth. That I met someone who makes me want to be better, who reminds me there's more to life than quarterly earnings and strategic plans. She pulled back to look at him. But I also know that's complicated. You work for me. There are policies about fraternization, about power dynamics. I don't want to put you in a difficult position. What if I'm willing to risk it? Then I'd say you're either very brave or very foolish. She smiled to soften the words. Probably both. Definitely both. He pulled her closer as the song shifted to something slower. But I'm also sure about this. About you. About wanting to see where this goes, complications and all. Evan, her voice caught. I haven't done this in so long. I don't know if I remember how to be in a relationship, to be vulnerable and open and all the things that terrifies me. So we figure it out together. Take it slow. See what happens. With a 7-year-old daughter and company policies and people watching our every move? Yeah, with all of that. He met her eyes steadily. Unless you're telling me you don't want this. No. The word came out fierce, certain. I want this. I want you. That's what scares me. How much I want this after just 2 days. Then stop being scared. He smiled gently. Or at least be scared with me instead of alone. She laughed, shaky but genuine. When did you get so wise? Single parenting forces you to figure out what matters and what's just noise. They danced through 2 more songs, lost in their own world despite the room full of people. Evan saw Karen give him a discreet thumbs up from across the room, saw some of the executives watching with curiosity, others with what might have been disapproval. He didn't care. All that mattered was the woman in his arms, the way she fit against him like she belonged there, the possibility blooming between them like something inevitable and right. When the band took a break, they reluctantly separated. Lena was immediately claimed by a VP who needed to discuss something urgent. She gave Evan an apologetic look over her shoulder as she was pulled away. He found his way back to his table where Karen was grinning like the Cheshire Cat. So, she said, you and Lena Ward. Don't even try it. I saw the way you two were looking at each other. She lowered her voice. Good for you. Seriously. She needs someone real in her life. It's complicated. Everything worthwhile is. Karen squeezed his arm. Just be careful, okay? Not because I don't support you, but because office politics can get ugly. Evan nodded, appreciating the concern. He stayed for another hour, making small talk and trying not to watch Lena work the room. Finally, he caught her eye and mouthed, heading out. She nodded, mouthed back tomorrow, and he left before he could change his mind. Back in his room, he found Mia asleep on the couch with the babysitter reading beside her. He paid Amy, thanked her, and carried his daughter to bed. She stirred as he tucked her in. Did you dance with Ms. Lena? Yeah, baby, I did. Was it nice? Very nice. He kissed her forehead. Now sleep. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. He changed into sleep clothes and climbed into his own bed, exhausted but too wired to sleep. His phone buzzed. Thank you for tonight. For the dance, for being patient with me, for making me believe this might actually work. Sleep well. L. He typed back, thank you for taking a chance on this. On us. Sweet dreams. Her response was immediate. Already dreaming, and you're in them. Evan set his phone aside and stared at the ceiling, a smile playing at his lips. Tomorrow they'd hike to the lighthouse. Tomorrow they'd have more time together. Tomorrow they'd keep building this fragile, impossible, wonderful thing between them. For now, he let himself float on the high of possibility, on the memory of her in his arms, on the promise of what might come next. Sleep, when it finally came, was deep and dreamless and content. Morning came with Mia jumping on his bed again, but this time Evan was already half awake, his mind replaying the previous night's dance. The weight of Lena in his arms, the way she'd looked at him like he was someone worth taking a risk for, the text messages that had continued until nearly midnight when she'd finally admitted she needed to sleep. Daddy, we're going hiking with Ms. Lena today? Mia's excitement was infectious. We need to wear good shoes and bring water and snacks because it's a long walk to the lighthouse. How do you know all that? Miss Lena texted me the list. Well, she texted you, but I saw it. Mia held up his phone with absolutely no shame. She said to make sure you ate a good breakfast because you always forget when you're busy thinking about stuff. Evan took his phone back, scrolling through messages he'd apparently slept through. Lena had indeed sent a detailed packing list, followed by a series of increasingly silly messages about her own terrible hiking experiences in business school. The last one, sent at 6 this morning, simply said, "Can't wait to see you both." Counting the minutes. His heart did that now familiar flip in his chest. They ate breakfast quickly in their room, Evan packing trail mix in water bottles while Mia changed her outfit 3 times before settling on leggings and her favorite purple t-shirt with a sparkly unicorn. By 7:30, they were heading down to the lobby where the hiking group was supposed to meet. Evan expected a crowd. Instead, he found only a handful of people clustered near the entrance, most of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. He recognized a few faces from the retreat, but didn't see Lena among them. Maybe she changed her mind, he murmured to himself, trying to ignore the disappointment settling in his stomach. Change my mind about what? He turned to find Lena emerging from the hallway, dressed in hiking pants and a lightweight jacket, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked fresh and energized and completely beautiful, and the smile she gave him was private and warm despite the other people around them. "Nothing," he said. "Ready for a hike?" "More than ready." She crouched down to Mia's level. "Good morning, sweetheart. I love your shirt." "It's my favorite. The unicorn has a rainbow mane." Mia pointed this out as if it were the most important detail in the world. Clearly, the best kind of unicorn. Lena straightened, her eyes meeting Evan's. Something passed between them, a recognition of the line they'd crossed last night, of the possibility they were both choosing to pursue. "Shall we?" The trail to the lighthouse wound up the coastal cliffs, offering stunning views of the ocean and the resort below. The group spread out quickly, some people racing ahead with competitive determination, others lagging behind to take photos or catch their breath. Evan, Lena, and Mia naturally fell into their own pace somewhere in the middle, close enough to be part of the group but separate enough for conversation. "So," Lena said as they climbed a particularly steep section, "I may have done something this morning." "What kind of something?" Evan kept one hand on Mia's back, steadying her over the rough terrain. "I talked to HR about company fraternization policies." She kept her eyes on the trail, but he could see tension in her shoulders. "Wanted to understand the actual rules before we went any further with this." Evan's stomach tightened. And it's complicated but not impossible. The policy prohibits relationships where one person has direct supervisory authority over the other. Technically, you don't report to me directly. You report to the facilities director, who reports to operations, who reports to me. Several layers removed. "Technically," Evan repeated, hearing what she wasn't saying. "But perception matters. People might assume favoritism or impropriety even if there isn't any." She glanced at him. "Karen suggested I might want to recuse myself from any decisions that directly affect your employment. Performance reviews, promotions, that kind of thing." "You talked to Karen Chen about us?" "She cornered me at breakfast this morning. Apparently our dancing last night was the subject of considerable speculation." Lena's mouth quirked. "She's firmly Team Evan, by the way. Said it was about time someone made me act like a human being instead of a corporate robot." Despite his anxiety, Evan laughed. "That sounds like Karen. She also reminded me that we're both adults who can make our own decisions, and that the company exists to serve people's lives, not the other way around." Lena paused as they reached a flat section of trail, turning to face him properly. "But I want to know how you feel about it. About the complications, the potential scrutiny. I don't want you to feel pressured or uncomfortable." Mia had run ahead to examine something in the bushes, giving them a moment of relative privacy. Evan chose his words carefully. "I'd be lying if I said it didn't worry me. My job supports my daughter. If this goes wrong and there's fallout, I can't just bounce back easily." He met her eyes. "But I also think some things are worth the risk, and this, you, feel worth it. Even knowing people will talk, that they might say you're using me for career advancement or that I'm taking advantage of my position. Let them talk." He said it with more confidence than he felt. "We know the truth. That's what matters." Is it? Lena's voice was quiet, vulnerable. Because I'm terrified, Evan. Terrified of screwing this up, of hurting you or Mia, of proving that I'm exactly as incapable of real relationships as my track record suggests. Hey. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. You're not incapable. You're just out of practice, and nobody's expecting perfection here. Mia might be. Children have high standards. As if summoned by her name, Mia came bounding back, clutching something in her hands. Look, a perfect pine cone. Can I keep it? Sure, baby. Evan examined the pine cone, which was indeed remarkably symmetrical. Good find. I'm going to put it with my sand dollar. Mia carefully tucked it into her small backpack, then looked between the two adults with knowing eyes. Are you guys holding hands? There was a beat of silence. Then Lena said, Yes, we are. Is that okay with you? Mia considered this with the seriousness it deserved. Does it mean you like my dad? Very much. And does Dad like you? Very much, Evan confirmed. Good. Mia nodded decisively. Because you make him happy, and he makes you smile real smiles instead of fake ones. That's important. She started walking again, calling back over her shoulder. You should probably kiss, though. That's what people do when they like each other. Evan felt heat crawl up his neck. Mia. But Lena was laughing, a genuine, delighted sound that made his embarrassment worth it. She's not wrong about the kissing thing. She's 7. What does she know about kissing? Apparently more than we do. Lena squeezed his hand. Come on, let's catch up before she decides to play matchmaker with the entire hiking group. They continued up the trail, still holding hands, despite the occasional curious glances from other hikers passing in the opposite direction. The higher they climbed, the more spectacular the views became. The ocean stretched endless and blue, dotted with sailboats and seabirds. The resort looked like a toy village far below. I can see why you come here every year, what Evan said as they paused at an overlook. It's incredible. It used to be my escape. A few days where I could pretend to have balance, pretend I was more than just my job. Lena leaned against the railing, her expression contemplative. But this year feels different. This year, I'm not pretending. What are you doing instead? Hoping, planning, believing that maybe I can actually have both, the career and the life. She turned to him. You make me want to try, both of you. Before Evan could respond, Mia called out from further up the trail. Come on, slowpokes. The lighthouse isn't going to walk to us. The final approach to the lighthouse was steep, but the payoff was worth it. The structure stood white and proud against the sky, its light dark during the day but clearly maintained and operational. A small museum occupied the lighthouse keeper's cottage, and Mia immediately wanted to explore every inch of it. Go ahead, Lena told her. We'll be right here. They settled on a bench overlooking the ocean while Mia disappeared into the museum with a few other families. For a moment, they just sat in comfortable silence, catching their breath and soaking in the view. Can I ask you something? Evan said. And you can tell me it's none of my business. Ask. Last night you said you hadn't done this in a long time. How long is a long time? Lena was quiet for a moment, watching the waves. 3 years since my last relationship. 5 years since one that actually mattered. She glanced at him. I was seeing someone, another executive, different company. We kept it quiet, professional. Or we thought we did. When it ended badly. He spread rumors that I'd used him for industry connections, that I was manipulative and cold. Some people believed it. That's awful. It taught me to be careful. Maybe too careful. She turned toward him on the bench. But with you, I don't want to be careful. I want to be honest and open and all the things that scare me. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. He reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear that had escaped her ponytail. His hand lingered on her cheek and she leaned into the touch. For what it's worth, I don't think you're manipulative or cold. I think you're guarded because you've been hurt. But I also think you're ready to stop being guarded. Mia was right, about the kissing thing. Lena's voice had gone soft, her eyes searching his face. I've been thinking about it since last night, since the dance. Maybe before that. Yeah? His heart was pounding now, anticipation and nervousness mixing in his chest. Yeah. She shifted closer on the bench. So maybe we should... Daddy, Ms. Lena, they have a real lighthouse lens inside. You have to see it. Mia's voice shattered the moment, and they pulled apart, both laughing despite their frustration. Lena shook her head ruefully. Your daughter has impeccable timing. She really does. But Evan was smiling, unable to be truly disappointed when Mia's excitement was so genuine. Come on, let's go see this lens. The museum was small but well curated, full of maritime history and lighthouse lore. Mia dragged them from exhibit to exhibit, reading every placard with intense focus and asking endless questions that Lena answered with surprising knowledge about navigation and coastal engineering. Watching them together, Evan felt that now familiar sensation of pieces clicking into place, of his life expanding to include possibilities he'd stopped believing in. By the time they emerged back into the sunlight, the rest of the hiking group had dispersed. Some had already started back down the trail, others were exploring the grounds. Evan checked his watch and was surprised to find it was nearly noon. We should probably head back, he said reluctantly. The closing session starts at 2. Or, Lena said with a hint of mischief in her eyes, we could skip the closing session entirely. There's a little beach on the north side of the property that nobody knows about. Private, quiet, perfect for an afternoon of doing absolutely nothing productive. You're the CEO. You're supposed to be at the closing session. I'm also the CEO, which means I can decide that spending the afternoon with you and Mia is more important than listening to someone's PowerPoint about synergistic outcomes. She smiled at his shocked expression. What? I'm allowed to play hooky for my own event. Won't people notice? Probably. Let them. She held out her hand to Mia. What do you say, sweetheart? Secret beach adventure? Yes! Mia grabbed her hand enthusiastically. I love secrets. They took a different trail down, one that branched away from the resort and wound through coastal scrub. Lena led them with confidence, clearly having made this journey before. After 20 minutes of hiking, the trail opened onto a small crescent of sand sheltered by cliffs on 3 sides and completely deserted. This is amazing, Evan breathed. How did you find it? I was hiding from a particularly tedious board retreat about 6 years ago. Went for a walk and stumbled onto it. Lena dropped her backpack on the sand. I've been coming here ever since when I need to think. They spread out a blanket Lena had somehow thought to bring and settled in with the remains of their trail snacks and water. Mia immediately began collecting shells, her earlier energy apparently endless. Evan and Lena sat close together, shoulders touching, watching her play. This is nice, Lena said softly. Peaceful. I'd forgotten what peaceful felt like. You need more of it in your life. I need a lot of things in my life. Balance, perspective, time for what matters. She looked at him. You and Mia matter. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but it's true. It doesn't feel crazy to me. Evan turned toward her, committing every detail to memory. The way the ocean breeze moved her hair, the unguarded softness in her expression, the fact that she was here, choosing this, choosing them. It feels right. Earlier at the lighthouse, we were interrupted. Lena's voice had gone quiet, intimate. Before Mia came back, I remember. I'd like to finish that conversation. If you're willing. Evan's mouth had gone dry. I'm willing. She leaned in slowly, giving him time to pull back, to change his mind. But Evan didn't want to do either of those things. He wanted this, wanted her, with a clarity that surprised him. When her lips met his, it was soft and tentative and perfect, a question and an answer all at once. The kiss was brief, almost chaste, but it sent electricity racing through Evan's veins. When they pulled apart, Lena's eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed. Okay? She asked. More than okay. He cupped her face in his hands, drawing her back for another kiss, this one deeper and more certain. She sighed against his mouth, her hands coming up to grip his shoulders, and for a long moment the world narrowed to just this. The taste of her, the feel of her, the rightness of it all. You guys are actually kissing. They broke apart to find Mia standing a few feet away, her expression torn between disgust and delight. You told us we should, Lena pointed out, laughing. I know, but I didn't think you'd actually do it where I could see. Mia made an exaggerated gagging sound, but she was grinning. Does this mean Ms. Lena is your girlfriend now, Daddy? Evan looked at Lena, raising an eyebrow in question. She smiled. I'd like to be, she said, if that's okay with everyone involved. It's okay with me, Mia declared, but you have to know the rules. Rule 1, you have to be nice to my daddy. Rule 2, you can't make him sad. Rule 3, you have to like me even when I'm annoying. Those seem like very reasonable rules, Lena said seriously. I accept all of them. Do I get to add rules too? Mia considered this. I guess that's fair. Okay. My rule 1, your dad has to let me take care of him sometimes, not just the other way around. Rule 2, we all have to be honest with each other even when it's hard. Rule 3, we remember that being a family or becoming one takes work, and we're willing to put in that work. The word family hung in the air, enormous and terrifying and wonderful. Evan saw Mia's eyes go wide, saw her process what Lena had just implied. Then his daughter did something that made his throat tight with emotion. She walked over to Lena and climbed into her lap, wrapping her arms around her neck in a fierce hug. I like your rules better than mine, Mia whispered. Lena's arms came around her, her eyes finding Evan's over Mia's shoulder. There were tears there, shining but not falling, and such raw emotion that Evan felt his own eyes sting in response. Thank you, Lena mouthed silently. He didn't need to ask what she was thanking him for. For Mia, for this moment, for the chance to be part of something real and messy and infinitely precious. He moved closer, wrapping his arms around both of them, and they sat there on the beach in an awkward, perfect tangle of limbs and hearts. Eventually, Mia wriggled free and went back to her shell collecting, leaving the adults alone again. But something had shifted. They'd named this thing between them, claimed it, made it real in front of the person who mattered most. I meant what I said, Lena told him quietly, about becoming a family. I know it's soon, I know we have a lot to figure out, but I want you to know my intentions. This isn't casual for me, Evan. You're not casual. You're not casual for me either. He took her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. But we do need to figure things out. The practical stuff. How this works with my job, with custody arrangements, with the fact that we live in different worlds most of the time. Your world, my world. What if we just made our own world instead? She said it like it was simple, like executives and maintenance supervisors merged their lives every day without complication. I have a house I'm never in. You have an apartment that's too small. What if we found somewhere in between? Somewhere that's ours? Lena, that's... He stopped, trying to find words for the enormity of what she was suggesting. We've known each other 3 days. I know. She didn't look away. I know it's fast and probably crazy and not how things are supposed to work. But I also know that I've spent 20 years being careful and strategic and taking calculated risks. And where has it gotten me? Successful and alone. So maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to lead with my heart instead of my head. And if it doesn't work out, if we get 6 months down the road and realize we made a mistake, then we'll handle it like adults, with honesty and respect and concern for Mia's well-being above everything else. She squeezed his hand. But what if it does work out, Evan? What if this is exactly what we're both supposed to be doing? He looked at his daughter, happily building a sand sculpture, completely trusting that the adults in her life would make good choices. Then he looked at Lena, this brilliant, complicated woman who was offering him something he'd stopped believing existed. Okay, he said. Let's try. Let's build our own world. Her smile was incandescent. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her again because he could, because she was his girlfriend now, because the future they were sketching out felt possible in a way nothing had in years. But we're doing it right, taking our time with the big stuff, making sure Mia's comfortable every step of the way, being smart even when we're being crazy. I can work with that. She settled against his side, her head on his shoulder. Although I reserve the right to occasionally be impulsive and romantic. Occasionally? Fine. Frequently. I have 20 years of repressed romance to make up for. They spent the rest of the afternoon on the secret beach, talking through logistics and possibilities and dreams. Lena was surprisingly practical once she got past the initial grand gestures. She suggested Evan transfer to a different department to eliminate any appearance of conflict of interest, offered to cover the cost of a larger apartment if they decided to move in together eventually, promised to respect his need to maintain his independence and not feel like he was being rescued or managed. "I don't want to be a project," Evan said at one point. "I need you to see me as an equal partner in this, not someone you're fixing or saving." "You're not a project. You're the person who showed me what I was missing." She turned to face him fully. "But I also have resources that could make both our lives easier, and I don't want to pretend I don't. That feels dishonest." "So how do we balance it?" "Honestly, openly. You tell me when something feels like too much or like I'm overstepping. I trust you to know what you and Mia need." She paused. "And maybe you let me help sometimes, not because you can't handle things yourself, but because people who love each other help each other." "People who love each other," Evan repeated softly. "Is that what we are?" Lena took a breath, then let it out slowly. "I don't know if I'm there yet, but I know I'm heading there fast, faster than I've ever moved toward anything that wasn't a business goal." "Me too." He admitted it quietly, surprised by his own certainty. "I look at you and I see possibility. I see someone I could love very easily if I let myself." "So let yourself." She made it sound simple. "I know I'm going to." The sun was starting its descent toward the horizon when they finally packed up to head back. Mia was exhausted but happy, chattering about all the shells she'd found and whether they could come back to the secret beach tomorrow. Lena promised they could, then caught Evan's eye with a smile that said she was already planning it. The walk back to the resort felt different from the morning hike. There was ease between them now, a settled quality that came from decisions made and futures imagined. Lena held Evan's hand openly, not caring who saw. When they passed other retreat attendees on the trail, she greeted them warmly, but didn't stop, didn't slip back into CEO mode. At the resort entrance, reality finally intruded. The closing session had clearly just ended, with people streaming out of the conference room, collecting luggage, saying goodbyes. Several executives did double takes when they saw Lena in hiking clothes, hand in hand with the maintenance supervisor. "Lena, we missed you at the closing." One of the VPs, Evan thought his name was Richard, approached with a curious expression. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect." Lena's voice was pleasant but firm. "I had more important things to attend to." Richard's gaze flickered to Evan and Mia, his eyebrows rising. "I see. Well, the quarterly results presentation went well. Mitchell covered for you." "Excellent. I'll review the notes tonight." She didn't elaborate, didn't apologize, just moved the conversation forward with the kind of confidence that brooked no argument. After Richard walked away, Evan leaned close to her. "That's going to be all over the office by Monday." "I know." She didn't sound concerned. "Let it be. We're not doing anything wrong. People might not see it that way. Then people will have to adjust their perspective." She looked up at him. "Unless you want to keep this quiet? I'd understand if you did." Evan thought about it, about the easy route of secrecy and discretion. Then he thought about the way Lena had held Mia on the beach, about the future they'd started planning, about his daughter's wisdom, that real smiles mattered more than fake ones. "No," he said, "I don't want to hide. Not this." "Good." She went up on her toes and kissed him, right there in the resort lobby with half the executive team watching. It was brief but unmistakable, a public claiming that made Evan's heart race. When she pulled back, she was grinning. "Tomorrow we head home, back to real life. Back to being CEO and maintenance supervisor. Back to being Lena and Evan, who are figuring this out together." She corrected gently. "The jobs are what we do. This is who we are." They parted ways to pack and get Mia ready for dinner, with plans to meet in an hour. Evan used the time to call his mother, who'd been watching their apartment and watering plants, to let her know they'd be home tomorrow. "How was the retreat?" she asked. "Life-changing, actually. And then because he'd never been able to lie to his mother, I met someone. It's new and complicated and probably too fast, but it feels right." There was a pause, then, "Is she good to Mia?" "The best. Mia adores her." "Then I'm happy for you, sweetheart. You deserve someone who sees how special you are. After he hung up, he found Mia standing in the doorway, freshly showered and dressed for dinner in her nicest dress. Was Grandma happy about Ms. Lena? Very happy. Good. Mia came over and hugged him. I'm happy too, Daddy. You don't look sad anymore. I didn't know I looked sad before. Not sad like crying, sad like missing something. She pulled back to look at him seriously. But now you found it. You found Miss Lena. Out of the mouths of children, indeed. Evan hugged his daughter tight, grateful beyond words for her wisdom and generosity, for the way she welcomed Lena into their lives without reservation. I love you so much, baby. I love you too. Now can we go eat? I'm starving. Dinner was a casual affair at the resort restaurant, just the three of them at a corner table overlooking the ocean. They talked about the weekend, about Mia's favorite parts and what she wanted to tell her friends at school. Lena listened with genuine interest, asking questions and offering her own observations, and Evan watched his two favorite people connect with a warmth that made his chest ache. After dinner, they walked the beach one last time, Mia running ahead to chase the waves in the twilight. Lena leaned against Evan's side, her arm around his waist. Thank you for this weekend, she said quietly, for taking a chance on me, for letting me into your life. Thank you for wanting in. He kissed the top of her head. What happens Monday? When we're back in the office and the retreat glow wears off? Monday, I have a meeting with HR to formally document our relationship and set up the conflict of interest protocols. Tuesday, I'm announcing your transfer to the innovation department. They've been looking for someone with your skills, and it gets you out of my direct reporting chain.
You already arranged all that? I made some calls during the closing session I skipped. She shrugged. The transfer comes with a raise, by the way. Same benefits, better opportunities for advancement, completely merit-based. I'll recuse myself from any decisions about your career going forward. Lena, don't argue. You're qualified for the position. It makes sense for the company and for us. She looked up at him. And it means we can have this, really have it, without anyone being able to claim impropriety. He wanted to protest, to insist he didn't need her help, but he recognized the gesture for what it was. Not a rescue, but a partnership. She was using her resources to protect what they were building, to give them the best possible chance. Okay, he said. Thank you. You're welcome. She rose on her toes to kiss him. Now can we stop talking about work and just enjoy our last night here? They spent the evening on the beach, watching stars emerge and making plans that felt both audacious and inevitable. Lena talked about cutting back her hours, about finding balance, about what it might look like to have weekends actually free for family time. Evan talked about going back to school part-time, about finishing that engineering degree, about dreams he'd set aside that maybe didn't have to stay abandoned forever. And Mia, exhausted by the day's adventures, fell asleep between them on the blanket, one hand clutching Lena's sleeve, the other holding Evan's. They looked down at her peaceful face and then at each other, and Evan saw his own wonder reflected in Lena's eyes. We're really doing this, she whispered. Yeah, we really are. I'm terrified. Me too. He reached across their sleeping daughter to take Lena's hand, but I'm more excited than terrified. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. She smiled, and even in the darkness he could see the joy in it, the hope, the beginning of something that felt like love. They sat there until Mia stirred and mumbled about being cold, then gathered their things and headed inside. At the elevators, they had to part ways, their rooms on different floors. Lena kissed Evan goodnight, with Mia drowsing against his shoulder, then pressed a lighter kiss to Mia's forehead. Sweet dreams, both of you. You too, Evan said. See you in the morning? First thing. She stepped into the elevator, holding his gaze until the doors closed. I'm already counting the hours. Upstairs, Evan tucked Mia into bed and climbed into his own, his phone already lighting up with a message from Lena. Thank you for the best weekend of my life. Thank you for Mia. Thank you for taking this crazy leap with me. Sweet dreams, love, L. He read it twice, his heart full to bursting, then typed back. The pleasure was all ours. Sleep well, dream about secret beaches and sandcastles, and tomorrow. Her response was immediate. Already am. And you're in every single one. Evan set his phone aside and stared at the ceiling, a smile playing at his lips. Outside, the ocean whispered against the shore. Tomorrow they'd pack up and head home. Tomorrow real life would resume, with all its complications and challenges. But tonight, he let himself float on pure happiness, on the certainty that something profound had shifted in his world. That he'd walked into this weekend invisible and alone, and was leaving it seen and connected and part of something bigger than himself. Sleep, when it came, was deep and peaceful, and filled with dreams of gray eyes and soft smiles and a future that suddenly seemed full of possibility. The drive home from the coast should have felt like an ending, but instead it felt like a continuation of everything that had begun over the weekend. Lena had suggested they caravan together, her sleek sedan following Evan's 10-year-old Honda through the winding coastal highway back toward the city. In the rearview mirror, he could see her singing along to something on her radio, occasionally catching his eye and smiling when they stopped at red lights. Mia was sprawled in the back seat, surrounded by her weekend treasures. The sand dollar, the pine cone, shells wrapped carefully in tissues, and a photo Lena had printed at the resort of the three of them at the lighthouse. She'd barely stopped talking since they'd loaded the car, processing everything that had happened with the earnest intensity only a 7-year-old could muster. "So Miss Lena is coming to our apartment today?" she asked for the third time. "Just to see where we live. She won't stay long." Evan glanced in the rearview mirror at his daughter's hopeful face. "Remember, she has work to catch up on, and we need to do laundry and get ready for your school week. But she'll come back, right? Like, to visit? Because she's your girlfriend now, and girlfriends visit." "Yes, she'll visit." The word girlfriend still felt surreal in his mouth, like something borrowed from a younger version of himself who hadn't yet learned how complicated adult relationships could be. His phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Lena's name appeared on the screen. "Miss me already?" he answered, smiling. "Desperately. I've been alone in this car for 20 whole minutes." Her voice was warm, teasing. "Also, Mia left her unicorn jacket in my car. Want me to bring it up when we get to your place?" "You don't have to do that. I can grab it from you in the parking lot." "Evan." Her tone shifted, becoming more serious. "I want to see where you live, where Mia grows up. It's important to me." He understood what she wasn't saying, that she wanted all of him, not just the weekend version, but the everyday reality of his life. The small apartment, the juggling act, the unglamorous truth of single parenthood on a maintenance supervisor's salary. "Okay," he said. "Fair warning, it's not much, and I didn't exactly leave it clean when we left Friday morning." "I don't care about clean. I care about you." A pause, then softer. "Both of you." They pulled into his apartment complex 40 minutes later, a modest building in a decent neighborhood that was all Evan could afford after the divorce. Lena parked next to him, emerging from her car with Mia's jacket and an expression of genuine curiosity as she looked around. "Third floor," Evan said, grabbing their bags. "No elevator, I'm afraid." "Good exercise." She fell into step beside him, carrying the lighter bag while Mia raced ahead, eager to be home. "How long have you lived here?" 5 years, since Mia was 2. He unlocked the building's main door, holding it for her. "It's close to her school, close to work. The landlord's decent about maintenance requests." "Do you like it?" He considered the question as they climbed the stairs. "It's functional, safe, affordable. That's what mattered when I was looking." He glanced at her. "Not exactly what you're used to, I'm guessing." "Evan?" She stopped on the landing between floors, waiting until he turned to face her. "I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom and 2 siblings. I shared a room with my sister until I was 16. This idea you have that I've always lived in luxury, it's not true. I worked for what I have now." "I know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant. You're worried I'll judge you, judge this." She gestured at the stairwell, the worn carpet, the water-stained ceiling tiles. "But I won't. This is your life, your home. It's where you've raised your daughter and built something real. That's worth more than marble countertops." Mia's voice echoed down from above. "Daddy, I can't reach the door." The moment broke, and they continued up to the 3rd floor where Mia was bouncing impatiently outside their apartment.
Evan unlocked the door, acutely aware of Lena following him inside, her eyes taking in everything. The apartment was small, a living room that doubled as dining room, a galley kitchen, one bathroom, and 2 tiny bedrooms. Mia's artwork covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered across the living room floor despite his attempt to tidy before they'd left. A basket of unfolded laundry sat on the couch. The whole place smelled faintly of the vanilla candle he'd burned Thursday night. It was cramped and cluttered and unmistakably the home of a single parent doing his best. "I love it," Lena said, and she sounded like she meant it. "You don't have to—" "Evan, stop." She set down the bag and turned to face him fully. "I love that there are family photos everywhere. I love that Mia's crayon drawings are on the fridge and there's a reading corner with 1,000,000 stuffed animals. I love that this feels like a home, not a showpiece." She touched his arm. "I live in a 4-bedroom house that an interior designer decorated. It's beautiful and empty, and I hate being there. This is real. This is life. Don't apologize for it." Mia had already disappeared into her room, unpacking her treasures with single-minded focus. Evan found himself alone with Lena in his small living room, suddenly hyper-aware of the intimacy of having her in his space. "Can I get you something? Water? Coffee?" "Coffee would be great." She followed him into the narrow kitchen, watching as he started the ancient coffee maker. "This is going to sound strange, but I'm envious." "Of what? My glamorous life of laundry and mac and cheese dinners? Of the fact that you've built something that matters, that you come home every day to someone who needs you and loves you unconditionally." She leaned against the counter. "I come home to silence and a refrigerator full of takeout containers. Sometimes I go days without a real conversation with anyone." "That sounds lonely." "It is." She said it simply, without self-pity. "That's part of why this weekend meant so much. Why you and Mia mean so much. You reminded me what I've been missing." The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the kitchen with familiar sounds and smells. Evan pulled down 2 mugs, mismatched thrift store finds, and poured carefully. "I need to tell you something," he said, handing her a mug. "About tomorrow. About going back to work." "Okay." She wrapped her hands around the mug, waiting. "I'm nervous. About the transfer. About people knowing about us. About everything changing." He met her eyes. "This weekend was like a bubble. A beautiful, perfect bubble. But tomorrow we're back in the real world where you're the CEO and I'm my partner," she interrupted firmly. "Not my employee, not someone beneath me in some hierarchy, my equal partner in this relationship. The org chart might disagree. Then the org chart can be updated." She set down her mug and took his hands. "I meant what I said about the transfer. You start an innovation on Wednesday. I already confirmed it with the department head. Different division, different reporting structure, completely out of my supervisory chain. And I've drafted a disclosure memo for HR documenting our relationship and the steps we're taking to prevent any conflicts of interest." "You did all that today? While we were driving?" "I made some calls from rest stops." She smiled slightly. "I'm good at multitasking. Lena, you don't have to solve everything immediately." "I'm not solving, I'm protecting. There's a difference." Her grip tightened on his hands. "I've seen workplace relationships destroyed by rumors and innuendo. I won't let that happen to us. So yes, I'm being proactive. Yes, I'm using my position to make sure this is handled properly, but I'm doing it for us, not to you." He understood the distinction, appreciated it even as part of him bristled at needing protection at all. But she was right. She had resources and influence that could smooth their path, and refusing them out of pride would be foolish. "Okay," he said. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She kissed him softly, and he was struck again by how natural it felt. How right. "Now, can I see Mia's room? I want to see where she keeps all those treasures she's been collecting." They spent the next hour in comfortable domesticity. Lena admired Mia's room with genuine enthusiasm, listening as his daughter explained the significance of every stuffed animal and drawing. They helped put away the weekend's additions to her collection, finding special places for the sand dollar and shells. Lena asked questions about Mia's school, her friends, her favorite subjects, and Evan watched his 2 worlds merge with a sense of wonder. Eventually, Lena's phone started buzzing with increasing frequency, work calling her back to reality.
She apologized, checked a few messages, then looked at Evan with regret. I should go. I have about 50 emails I need to handle before tomorrow. I understand. He did, even if part of him wanted to ask her to stay longer, to extend the weekend just a little further. They walked her down to her car, Mia holding her hand and chattering about wanting to show her the new art project she'd start at school this week. At the car, Lena crouched down to Mia's level. I had the best time with you this weekend. Thank you for sharing your dad with me. You can share him any time. Mia hugged her fiercely. Will you come to my school art show next month? It's on a Friday night. Lena looked up at Evan, question in her eyes. He nodded, his throat tight. I would love to come to your art show, Lena told Mia. I'll put it in my calendar right now. She pulled out her phone, made a show of adding it, then showed Mia the entry. See? Can't forget now. After Mia skipped back toward the building, Lena stood and pulled Evan into a proper goodbye kiss, one that made his pulse race and his doubts recede. Tomorrow's going to be fine, she murmured against his lips. We're going to be fine. Promise? Promise. She kissed him again, softer. I'll text you tonight, and I'll see you at work, even if we have to be professional about it. Looking forward to the professional version of you. Liar. You like the unprofessional version better. But she was smiling as she climbed into her car. Sweet dreams, Evan Brooks. You too, Lena Ward. He stood in the parking lot and watched her drive away, feeling the weekend's magic lingering even as Monday loomed. Back upstairs, he found Mia already in her pajamas, brushing her teeth in the bathroom. I really like her, Daddy, she said around her toothbrush. I really like her too. Are you going to marry her? Evan choked on air. Mia, we just started dating. Marriage is a long way off. But you want to, right? Eventually? She rinsed her mouth, looking at him with those two knowing eyes. Because she's perfect for us. She's nice and smart, and she likes the ocean, and she doesn't treat me like I'm stupid just because I'm 7. She is pretty great, he admitted. But relationships take time, baby. We need to make sure this is really going to work before we think about forever. It's going to work. Mia said it with the confidence of someone who'd never had their heart broken. I can tell. If only adult life were that simple. But as Evan tucked his daughter into bed and kissed her goodnight, he found himself hoping she was right. The next morning came too early, and with a knot of anxiety in Evan's stomach that coffee couldn't quite dissolve, he dropped Mia at school, endured her excited whispers about how he should text Miss Lena to say good morning, and drove to work with his heart pounding. The company campus looked the same as it had Friday morning, but Evan felt fundamentally different walking through the doors. He was someone's boyfriend now. He was someone the CEO had chosen, publicly, deliberately. That had to mean something, had to change the dynamic somehow. In the facilities office, his coworkers greeted him normally, asking about the retreat with polite disinterest. Nobody seemed to know about him and Lena yet, which was both a relief and strangely disappointing. He threw himself into catching up on the weekend's work orders, trying to ignore the way his phone stayed silent. At 10 o'clock, his supervisor called him into her office. Evan, I've just been informed of some changes to your position. Maria Chen, Karen's sister-in-law, and the facilities director looked both confused and impressed. You've been transferred to the innovation department, effective Wednesday. Significant pay raise, better benefits package. Did you know about this? I was told it might happen, he said carefully. I didn't realize it would be so fast. Fast is an understatement. The paperwork came through this morning with executive approval. She studied him curiously. This is quite a promotion, Evan. Innovation is where the company's putting a lot of resources right now. You must have made quite an impression at the retreat. I guess so. Well, congratulations. You deserve it. You've always been too skilled for basic maintenance work. She smiled warmly. I'll be sorry to lose you, but I'm happy for the opportunity you're getting. After the meeting, Evan sat at his desk trying to process the reality of it. By Wednesday, he'd be in a different department, doing different work, earning almost 40% more than his current salary. It was everything he should have wanted, everything he'd stopped believing he could have. So why did he feel like he was being managed rather than promoted? His phone buzzed. Finally, Lena. How's your morning? Mine is back-to-back meetings, and I miss you already. He stared at the message, torn between warmth and frustration. Finally, he typed, "Just got officially told about the transfer. We should probably talk about that. Tonight? Come to my place for dinner? I'll cook. Or attempt to cook. Fair warning, my skills are limited. Lena, we need to talk about boundaries, about you making decisions that affect my career without really consulting me." There was a longer pause before her response came. "You're right. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. Can we talk face to face, please?" He sighed, his irritation already fading. "Okay, what time? 7? I'll text you my address. See you then." The rest of the day crawled by. Evan splitting his time between work and overthinking everything. Was he being ungrateful? The transfer was objectively good for him and Mia, but it also felt like Lena swooping in to fix his life, and that raised questions about what she saw when she looked at him. A partner or a project? By the time he picked up Mia from after-school care and headed to Lena's house, he'd worked himself into a state of nervous tension that his daughter immediately noticed. "Are you mad at Ms. Lena?" Mia asked from the back seat. "Not mad, just confused about some things." "You should tell her. Grandma says communication is important in relationships." "When did Grandma say that?" "Yesterday when I called her to tell her about Miss Lena. She said you should talk about your feelings instead of keeping them inside because that's what Grandpa did, and it made Grandma crazy." Mia said this matter-of-factly, as if relationship advice from his mother via his 7-year-old was perfectly normal. "Your grandmother talks too much." "She talks the right amount, and she's excited to meet Ms. Lena, by the way. I told her maybe for dinner next week." "Mia, you can't just invite people to things without asking me first." "Why not? You're going to invite her eventually anyway. I'm just saving time." He couldn't argue with that logic, so he didn't try. Lena's house was in one of the city's nicest neighborhoods, a modern craftsman-style home with perfect landscaping and the kind of curb appeal that suggested a full-time gardener. Evan pulled into the driveway, feeling acutely aware of his car's age and the children's car seat visible in the back. Before he could spiral further, Lena was opening the front door, dressed in jeans and a casual sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked nervous and hopeful, and so beautiful that Evan's prepared speech about boundaries temporarily fled his mind. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm really glad you came." "Hi." He helped Mia out of the car, and his daughter immediately ran to Lena for a hug. "Your house is so pretty. Can I see your room?" "Mia, that's not polite," Evan started, but Lena was already laughing. "It's fine. Come on. I'll give you both the tour." The house was exactly what Evan had expected, tastefully decorated, immaculately clean, and completely impersonal. Lena walked them through rooms that looked like they belonged in a magazine spread, explaining apologetically that she'd let the designer have free rein and had never bothered to change anything. "It doesn't feel like you," Evan observed as they stood in the pristine kitchen where dinner ingredients were laid out with almost comical precision. "I know," she sighed. "I basically sleep here and that's it. Everything important happens at the office." She looked at him. Or it did, until this weekend. Mia had already found the backyard, a beautifully landscaped space with a pool and outdoor kitchen, and was exploring with appropriate awe. Through the windows, they could watch her examining everything while maintaining a careful distance from the pool's edge. "I owe you an apology," Lena said quietly. "About the transfer. You're right that I overstepped. I was so focused on solving the problem, on making sure we could be together without complications, that I didn't stop to think about how it would feel from your perspective. It feels like you're managing me, like you see my life as something that needs fixing." He kept his voice level, non-accusatory. "And maybe parts of it do need fixing, but I need to be part of those decisions, not just a passenger in my own life." "I know. I'm sorry." She leaned against the counter, her arms crossed defensively. "I have a tendency to take over, to assume I know the best solution to any problem. It's served me well professionally, but it's hell on personal relationships. I don't need you to solve my problems, Lena. I need you to be my partner, to ask instead of assume, to let me have agency in my own life." "You're absolutely right." She met his eyes. "The transfer is a good opportunity. I stand by that, but I should have discussed it with you properly before setting it in motion. Do you want me to cancel it?" "I can." "We'll figure out another way to handle the conflict of interest." He considered it, weighing pride against practicality.
No, it is a good opportunity, but going forward, we make these kinds of decisions together. Equal partners, remember? Equal partners. She moved closer, reaching for his hands. I promise I'll do better. I'll ask instead of assume. I'll remember that you've been handling your life just fine without my interference. I don't mind the interference so much as the process. He softened, unable to stay frustrated when she looked at him with such genuine regret. Just talk to me. Include me. Let me be part of the solution instead of the problem being solved. I can do that. She leaned up and kissed him softly. Thank you for calling me out. I need that. I need someone who won't just let me steamroll over everything. I have a feeling I'm going to get a lot of practice at it. Probably. But she was smiling now. So, dinner? I promised to cook, which might have been overly ambitious, but I'm willing to try. They made dinner together, pasta with vegetables that Lena admitted she'd had to Google how to prepare. It was charmingly incompetent, her in this pristine kitchen clearly uncertain where anything was, consulting her phone for basic instructions. Evan gently took over at key moments, guiding her through techniques he'd learned from necessity, and gradually it became less about the food and more about the teamwork. Mia set the table without being asked, finding dishes and silverware through trial and error, making the formal dining room feel less like a showroom and more like a home. When they finally sat down to eat, the pasta was slightly overcooked and the vegetables were underseasoned, but none of them cared. This is my new favorite dinner, Mia declared through a mouthful of pasta. Even though it's kind of terrible, Lena asked, amused. It's not terrible. It's made with love. Daddy says that's the most important ingredient. Daddy's right. Lena caught Evan's eye across the table, and something warm passed between them. Although next time, maybe Daddy should supervise more closely. Next time, Evan repeated, liking the sound of it. The assumption of continuity, of more dinners and more moments like this. After dinner, they moved to the living room while Mia explored the bookshelves with permission to look but not touch. Lena sat close to Evan on the couch, their thighs touching, her head on his shoulder. I've been thinking, she said quietly, about what you said. About being partners instead of me managing things. Yeah? I want to do this right, which means I need to know what you need from me. What does being a good partner look like to you? He thought about it, appreciating that she'd asked. Honestly, I need you to slow down sometimes, to not always be 10 steps ahead, solving problems I haven't even identified yet. I need you to let me struggle a little, to figure things out on my own, because that's how I maintain my sense of self. That's fair, but I also need you to know that asking for help doesn't make me weak. That sometimes I will need your resources or connections or just your perspective on something. I just need to be the one asking, not you assuming. I can do that. She shifted to look at him properly. What else? I need you to understand that Mia comes first, always. If there's ever a conflict between what you want and what she needs, she wins. I wouldn't expect anything else. Lena's voice was firm. She should come first. Any partner of yours has to understand that. And I need you to be patient with me when I get insecure about the money thing, the class thing, the fact that you're brilliant and powerful and I'm just... Stop. She pressed her fingers to his lips. You're not just anything. You're kind and strong and an incredible father. You've built a beautiful life from nothing. You matter, Evan. Not because of what you earn or what title you have, but because of who you are. He kissed her fingers, moved by her vehemence. I'm working on believing that. Good. Keep working. I'll keep reminding you. She settled back against his shoulder. Now it's your turn. What do you need from me? Not as CEO, just as your girlfriend who's kind of a mess at relationships. He smiled at the self-deprecation. I need you to let me take care of you sometimes. To not always be in control, always be the one with the answers. To let yourself be vulnerable. That's terrifying. I know, but I think you need it. I think you've been alone in that armor so long you've forgotten there's a person underneath. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, my therapist says something similar. You have a therapist? Started seeing her 6 months ago. Realized I was having panic attacks before board meetings and thought that probably wasn't healthy. She laughed without humor. She's been trying to get me to admit I'm lonely and overworked for months now. You accomplished it in one weekend. I'm very efficient. You're very honest. She turned her face into his neck. It's refreshing and scary in equal measure. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Mia examine Lena's books with the careful reverence of a child who'd been taught to respect other people's things. The house felt different now with them in it. Warmer, lived in, real. I meant what I said this weekend, Lena murmured, about wanting this to be more than casual, about wanting to build something real. Me too. So where do we go from here? What does the next step look like? Evan considered it. Slow and steady, we keep seeing each other, keep building this foundation. We let Mia get used to you being around. We figure out how to balance your work with our time together. We learn each other's rhythms. How does Friday night sound? For a real date. Just us, no 7-year-old chaperone. She smiled against his shoulder. Although I love our 7-year-old chaperone. Friday sounds perfect. My mom can watch Mia. Your mom, who's apparently very excited to meet me. Mia told you about that? She texted me during school today. From your phone again. Lena pulled back to look at him, her eyes dancing with amusement. She suggested we all have dinner together next Sunday. Very specifically, she asked if I liked pot roast because that's your mom's specialty. I'm going to have a conversation with my daughter about boundaries. Don't, I think it's sweet. Lena's expression softened. And I'd love to meet your mom. Family's important. It is. He cupped her face in his hands, struck again by how lucky he was that she'd chosen him, chosen them. You're important. So are you. She kissed him softly, a promise and a question all at once. We're going to make this work, Evan. I don't know how exactly, but we will. Yeah. He believed it, believed in the possibility of them more than he'd believed in anything for a long time. We will. Mia's voice interrupted from across the room. Ms. Lena, why do you have so many books if you're never home to read them? Excellent question, Lena laughed, pulling away from Evan reluctantly. Maybe I need to make more time for reading. You could read to me sometime. Daddy does different voices for all the characters and it's really fun. I would love that. Lena stood, offering her hand to help Evan up. Come on, let's see what books I have that might be good for 7-year-olds. They spent the next hour on the floor surrounded by books, Lena reading to Mia while Evan watched with a fullness in his chest that felt like contentment. This was what he wanted, not the big house or the expensive things, but these quiet moments of connection, of building something real with someone who saw his daughter not as an obstacle, but as a gift. When Mia started yawning despite her best efforts to stay awake, Evan knew it was time to go. They said their goodbyes at the door, Mia hugging Lena fiercely and extracting a promise that she'd come to their apartment for movie night later in the week. Text me when you get home? Lena asked, her hand lingering in Evan's. Always. He kissed her one more time, slow and sweet, a promise for tomorrow and all the days after. Sleep well. Already looking forward to Friday. Me too. In the car, Mia was asleep before they left the neighborhood, worn out by excitement and the late night. Evan drove home through the quiet streets, his mind full of Lena and possibility, and the strange, wonderful turn his life had taken. His phone buzzed at a red light. He glanced at it, expecting Lena's usual goodnight message. Instead, it was from an unknown number. Heard interesting things about you and the CEO at the retreat. Careful, Brooks. Office romances rarely end well for the lower-level employee. His stomach clenched. So the rumors had started, the whispers and speculation he'd known were coming. He deleted the message without responding, refusing to let anonymous gossip poison what he and Lena were building. But as he pulled into his apartment complex, Evan couldn't shake the feeling that the easy part was over. The weekend bubble had been beautiful, but now came the real test. Navigating their relationship in the harsh light of office politics, corporate hierarchies, and the judgment of people who didn't know them but wouldn't hesitate to draw conclusions anyway. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Lena. Thank you for tonight, for calling me out, for being patient with me, for letting me be part of your life. You and Mia are the best thing that's happened to me in years. Sweet dreams, love. He read it twice, letting her words push back the anxiety. They'd figure this out. They had to. Because what they were building felt too important, too real, to let anyone else's opinions tear it down. Sweet dreams, he texted back. See you tomorrow. We've got this. Her response was immediate. Together. Together, he confirmed, and carried his sleeping daughter upstairs to their small apartment, their home. The life he'd built that was about to expand in ways both thrilling and terrifying. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, he let himself believe in possibility, in second chances, in the woman who'd seen him when he'd been invisible and chosen to stay. The anonymous message haunted Evan through a restless night, but Tuesday morning brought a different kind of challenge. His last day in the facilities department meant saying goodbye to coworkers he'd known for 3 years, packing up his desk, and fielding questions about his sudden promotion that he didn't quite know how to answer. So you and the CEO, huh? Marco from accounting cornered him at the coffee machine, his tone somewhere between impressed and skeptical. That must have been some retreat. We connected, Evan said carefully. It's new, but it's real. Man, I hope you know what you're doing. Corporate relationships are complicated enough without adding that kind of power imbalance. We're being careful, following all the protocols. Sure, Marco didn't sound convinced. Just watch yourself, okay? I've seen people get chewed up by office politics. You seem like a good guy. It was the kindest version of the warning Evan had received 3 times already that morning, and it was only 9 o'clock. He thanked Marco and retreated to his desk, trying to focus on the transition documents he was supposed to be preparing. His phone buzzed. Lena, of course. How's your morning? Mine is terrible. Budget meeting that should have been an email. People keep warning me about us, like I'm some naive kid who doesn't understand office politics. Ignore them. They don't know us, don't know what we're building. Want to have lunch? I can meet you somewhere off campus. That would be great. Noon? Perfect. There's a little cafe 3 blocks west. Maria's. I'll see you there. The morning crawled by, but finally noon arrived and Evan found himself walking to Maria's, a hole-in-the-wall Mexican place that looked like it had been there for decades. Lena was already seated in a corner booth, dressed in one of her sharp business suits but with her hair down, a small concession to being off the clock. Hi. She smiled as he slid into the booth across from her. How bad was it? About what I expected. Lots of concerned warnings and thinly veiled skepticism. He picked up the menu without really seeing it. I know they mean well, but it's exhausting. I'm getting the opposite problem. People falling over themselves to congratulate me on finding someone, like I'm some tragic spinster who finally got lucky. She rolled her eyes. My assistant actually said she was relieved I was dating because maybe I'd be less intense at work. Will you be? Probably not, but I might leave at a reasonable hour occasionally. She reached across the table, took his hand. I don't want to be less committed to my job. I want to be more committed to having a life outside of it. There's a difference. They ordered carnitas tacos for him, chicken enchiladas for her, and spent the next hour talking about everything except work. Lena wanted to know about Mia's school week, about his mother, about his plans for finishing his degree. She shared stories about her own childhood, about the sister she didn't talk to enough, and the nephew she'd only met twice. I've been thinking about what you said, Lena told him as they finished eating. About slowing down, about not always being 10 steps ahead. Yeah? I talked to my assistant this morning, blocked off every Friday evening for the foreseeable future. No meetings, no emergency calls unless the building's literally on fire. She squeezed his hand. I want to be present for this, for us. That means making space in my life, not just squeezing you into the margins. That's a big change. You're worth a big change. She said it simply, like it was obvious. You and Mia both. I don't want to be the person who's always canceling plans or showing up late or half distracted by work emails. I want to be someone who shows up. Evan felt his throat tighten with emotion. Thank you. That means a lot. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to be terrible at it initially. 3 years of therapy haven't managed to break my workaholic tendencies. She smiled ruefully, but I want to try. For you, for me, for the life I want us to build together. They parted ways outside the cafe with a kiss that was probably too familiar for the middle of the workday. But Evan couldn't bring himself to care. Let people see. Let them know that the CEO and the former maintenance supervisor were together and unashamed of it. His phone buzzed as he walked back to the office. Another unknown number. Nice lunch date. Hope she's worth your job because that's where this is heading. He stared at the message, anger and anxiety warring in his chest. This was the second anonymous warning, and it was starting to feel less like concern and more like harassment. He screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Lena with a simple note. Getting more of these. Should I be worried? Her response came within minutes. No. Forward them all to HR. This is workplace harassment and it won't be tolerated. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Evan did as she suggested, sending both messages to Karen Chen in HR with a brief explanation. Within an hour, Karen had called him personally. We take this very seriously, she assured him. Anonymous harassment of any employee is against company policy. I'm opening an investigation, and I want you to forward any future messages immediately. Do you know who's sending them? Not yet, but we'll find out. Our IT department can trace these things. She paused. How are you holding up? This can't be easy. I'm okay. Just frustrated that people feel entitled to comment on my personal life. Unfortunately, that's the reality when you're dating someone in a position of power. People get weird about it. Karen's voice softened. For what it's worth, I think you and Lena are good for each other. I've known her for 5 years and I've never seen her this happy. Really? Really? She's always been driven and competent, but there was this loneliness underneath. Like she'd achieved everything she wanted professionally and realized it wasn't enough. Karen laughed softly. Then she came back from the retreat practically glowing. Whatever you did, keep doing it. Wednesday morning arrived with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Evan's first day in the innovation department meant new coworkers, new responsibilities, new everything. He dressed carefully in one of his better shirts, dropped Mia at school with extra hugs, and drove to work rehearsing introductions in his head. The innovation department occupied the third floor of the main building, a bright open space full of whiteboards and prototype equipment, and the kind of creative chaos that felt both intimidating and energizing. His new supervisor, David Chen, apparently related to both Karen and Maria, because this company was apparently run by one extended family, greeted him warmly. Evan, great to have you on board. I've been reviewing your work history, and I'm impressed. You've got exactly the kind of practical problem-solving skills we need around here. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Let me show you around, introduce you to the team. The morning passed in a blur of names and faces and explanations of ongoing projects. Evan's role would be translating innovative concepts into practical applications, using his maintenance and engineering background to identify potential implementation problems before they became expensive mistakes. It was challenging work, intellectually demanding in a way his old job hadn't been, and he found himself genuinely engaged. At lunch, one of his new teammates, a woman named Sophie, who couldn't have been more than 25, invited him to join the group heading to the cafeteria. So you're the guy dating Lena Ward, she said as they collected their food. It wasn't a question. Word travels fast. This is a company of 3,000 people. Gossip is our primary form of entertainment. Sophie grinned. Don't worry, most of us think it's great. She deserves someone who makes her smile. You know her? I presented a project to her 6 months ago. She was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure, but also fair. Asked good questions, really listened to the answers. Sophie grabbed a table with the others. Anyway, welcome to Innovation. We're the weird corner of the company where they let us break things and occasionally build something useful. The afternoon brought his first real project, a proposal for retrofitting the company's older buildings with smart climate control systems. It required understanding both the technical specifications and the practical realities of implementation, exactly the kind of bridge building between concept and reality that David had hired him for. Evan threw himself into it, grateful for work that demanded his full attention and left no room for worrying about anonymous messages or office gossip. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, he was exhausted but satisfied, feeling like he'd actually contributed something valuable. His phone had been mercifully quiet all afternoon, but when he checked it before leaving, he found several messages from Lena. How was day one? I've been thinking about you all day. Movie night tonight, remember? I'm bringing pizza and I promise I won't overcook it because someone else is making it. Also, Mia texted me, from your phone again, to say I should bring ice cream. So I'm bringing ice cream. Evan smiled, his stress from the day melting away. This was what mattered, not the gossip or the warnings, but the simple joy of having someone who wanted to share pizza and movies with him and his daughter. Day one was great. See you at 7? And please stop giving Mia access to my phone. Never. She gives excellent advice. See you soon. Lena arrived promptly at 7 with pizza, ice cream, and a bag full of candy that made Mia shriek with delight and Evan raise his eyebrows. You're going to spoil her, he said, but he was smiling. That's kind of the point. Lena set everything on the kitchen counter, then pulled him in for a proper hello kiss. Hi, I missed you. You saw me yesterday. Still missed you. She kissed him again, softer. How was the new job, really? I want details. Over pizza, he told her about the climate control project, about his new team, about the way David had trusted him immediately with meaningful work. Lena listened with genuine interest, asking smart questions and offering perspectives from her broader view of the company's strategic direction. You're going to be great in this role, she said confidently. David told me this afternoon that you'd already identified 3 potential implementation problems in the smart building proposal that they'd completely missed. He told you that? He did. Completely unprompted, I might add. Said hiring you was the smartest decision he'd made all quarter. She grinned. I told him I agreed, though my reasons were slightly different. After dinner, they settled on the couch for the promised movie, something animated that Mia had chosen. Lena sat in the middle with Mia on one side and Evan on the other, and there was something so perfectly domestic about it that Evan felt his last doubts about them fade away. This was real. This was working. Despite the complications and the gossip and the very real challenges they'd face, they were building something solid. Halfway through the movie, Mia fell asleep against Lena's shoulder, exhausted by the week's excitement. Lena adjusted carefully to make her more comfortable, her hand gentle on Mia's hair. She's out cold, Evan murmured. Should we move her to bed? In a minute. Let her sleep. They sat in comfortable silence, the movie playing unwatched in the background. Lena's free hand found Evan's, their fingers interlacing with easy familiarity. Thank you, she said quietly, for letting me into this. Into your life, your home, your family. Thank you for wanting in. He studied her face in the flickering light from the television. Are you happy? Really? Happier than I've been in years. She didn't hesitate. Terrified, constantly certain I'm going to screw this up somehow, but happy. Is that weird? Not weird, human. He squeezed her hand. I'm terrified too, but I'm also sure. About you, about us, about wanting this to work. Even with the anonymous messages and the office gossip? Even with all of that, he meant it absolutely. Because what we have is worth fighting for. It is. She leaned her head against his shoulder, careful not to disturb the sleeping child on her other side. I meant what I said about wanting to build a family with you. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but I've never been more certain of anything. What does that look like to you, practically? I don't know exactly. I've never done this before. She was quiet for a moment. But I think it looks like me being present more often than absent, like eventually combining our lives in real ways, not just dating. Like me being a real partner to you and a real parental figure to Mia, if she'll have me. She adores you. You know that. I adore her too. She's incredible, Evan. You've raised someone kind and smart and generous, and I want to be part of helping her become whoever she's meant to be. The movie ended and they carefully transferred Mia to her bed, Lena helping tuck her in and accepting a sleepy hug and mumbled "love you" that made her eyes shine with unshed tears. She said she loves me, Lena whispered in the hallway afterward, sounding awed. Kids don't lie about that stuff. She means it. I love her too. Lena turned to face him, her expression vulnerable. And I'm falling in love with you. Is that too much too soon? Evan cupped her face in his hands, overwhelmed by the gift of her honesty. No, because I'm falling in love with you too. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. They stayed like that in the narrow hallway of his small apartment, wrapped up in each other and the future they were building until Lena reluctantly pulled away. I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. Stay. He said it impulsively, then clarified. Not like that. Just stay. Sleep on the couch or in my bed while I take the couch. I just want you here. You're offering to sleep on your own couch so I can stay? I'm offering you a place in my home, however that looks. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. No pressure. But the offer stands, tonight and any night. She considered it, and he could see her warring with herself, wanting to stay but afraid of moving too fast, wanting to be cautious but tired of being alone. Okay, she said finally, I'll stay, but I'll take the couch. This is your home, your space. I'm the guest. They argued about it good-naturedly for several minutes before compromising on fresh sheets on Evan's bed for Lena while he took the couch. Ike. He lent her a t-shirt to sleep in, tried not to think too hard about her wearing his clothes, and settled onto the couch with a spare blanket. But 10 minutes later, Lena appeared in the living room doorway. I can't sleep, she admitted. The bed's too big and too empty, and I keep thinking about you out here on this terrible couch. So what do you want to do about it? Can we just share the bed? Like adults? I promised to stay on my side. Evan's heart was pounding, but he nodded. They ended up in his bed together, careful space between them at first, until Lena rolled over and fitted herself against his side with a sigh of contentment. This is better, she murmured. Is this okay? More than okay. He wrapped his arm around her, feeling her relax into him. Sleep, Lena. Evan? Yeah? Thank you for being patient with me, for understanding that I'm figuring this out as I go. We both are. That's what makes it work. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Sweet dreams. She was asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out into the deep rhythm of exhaustion finally catching up. Evan lay awake a while longer, marveling at the woman in his arms, at the strange and wonderful path that had led them here. Friday arrived with its own anticipation, their first real date, just the two of them, no daughter as buffer or excuse. Evan's mother had agreed to watch Mia overnight, something about giving them time to be young and in love without worrying about school night bedtimes. Have fun, sweetheart, his mother had said when he'd called to confirm. And bring Lena by on Sunday. I want to meet the woman who's got my son smiling again. Lena had made reservations at a restaurant Evan had never heard of, but that apparently required booking weeks in advance unless you were a CEO who could pull strings. He'd protested the extravagance until she'd reminded him that this was their first real date, and she wanted it to be special. He dressed in his best suit, the one he'd bought for court appearances during the custody battle, and picked Lena up at her house at 7. She answered the door in a simple black dress that somehow made her look both elegant and approachable, her hair in soft waves around her shoulders. Wow, he said, momentarily forgetting how words worked. You look pretty wow yourself. She smiled, grabbing a wrap in her purse. Ready? The restaurant was exactly as fancy as he'd feared. White tablecloths, multiple forks, prices that made his eyes water. But Lena was relaxed and happy, and the food was admittedly incredible, and gradually Evan let himself enjoy it. Over dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Lena shared stories about her early career, about the mistakes she'd made climbing the ladder, and the lessons she'd learned. Evan told her about his dreams of going back to school, about the structures he wanted to design someday if he ever got the chance. What if I helped? Lena asked. Not paying for it, she clarified quickly at his expression. But the company has a tuition assistance program. You could take night classes, work toward finishing your degree. It would take a few years, but you'd get there. I've thought about it, but with Mia and work and now you, I don't know if I have the bandwidth. What if you did? What if we built our lives in a way that made room for your dreams, not just my career and Mia's needs? She reached across the table for his hand. I don't want you to give up on the things that matter to you. I want to help you achieve them. That's a lot of support to offer someone you've known 2 weeks. True, but I'm not offering it to someone I've known 2 weeks. I'm offering it to the man I'm in love with, who I plan to spend a very long time building a life with. She said it matter-of-factly, like forever was already decided. So yes, I'm invested in your success and happiness. Sue me. You're amazing, you know that? I'm learning to believe it. She smiled.
You make me want to be better, to do better, to actually show up for the life I'm living instead of just surviving it. After dinner, they walked through the city, hand in hand, talking about futures and possibilities. Lena told him about the house she wanted to buy someday, something smaller and homier than her current showplace, with a yard for kids to play in and a kitchen made for actual cooking rather than photo shoots. Kids plural? Evan asked carefully. Maybe, if that's something you'd want. She glanced at him. I know Mia is your priority, and she should be. But I've always wanted children, and I'm running out of time for biology to cooperate. So if we're really doing this, really building a future together, then yeah, I'd want to talk about expanding our family eventually. I'd like that. He said it honestly. Mia would love a sibling. She asks about it sometimes, whether she'll ever have a brother or sister. Then let's add it to the list of dreams we're working toward. Lena stopped walking, turned to face him on the quiet street. I want everything with you, Evan. The messy daily life, the big milestones, the quiet moments in between. I want to wake up next to you and fight over whose turn it is to make coffee and figure out how to blend our completely different lives into something that works for both of us. That's a pretty big commitment after 2 weeks. I know, but when you know, right? She cupped his face in her hands. I've spent 20 years being careful and strategic and protecting myself from exactly this kind of vulnerability. And where did it get me? Alone in a big house, married to my job, convinced I was too broken for real love. But then I met you and Mia, and suddenly I remembered what I was missing, what I'd sacrificed in pursuit of success. And I don't want to sacrifice it anymore. Evan pulled her close, kissed her with all the emotion he couldn't quite put into words. She melted against him, her arms around his neck, and they stood there on the sidewalk kissing like teenagers, until someone walking past cleared their throat meaningfully. They ended the evening at Lena's house, sitting on her back patio with glasses of wine and the stars overhead. The pool lights cast everything in blue-green shimmer, and the night was warm and perfect. I have something to tell you, Lena said, setting down her wine glass. HR finished their investigation into those anonymous messages. Already? They traced them to Richard Morrison in operations. He's been with the company 15 years, passed over for several promotions he thought he deserved. She looked uncomfortable. Apparently he heard rumors about us at the retreat and decided you were using me for career advancement. That's ridiculous. I know. But he's also being terminated for harassment, so at least there's some justice. She sighed. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It shouldn't have happened. It's not your fault. Isn't it? If I wasn't the CEO, if we didn't have this power imbalance that people can weaponize, Lena. He took her hand firmly. If you weren't who you are, we might never have met. Or we might have met differently, but I wouldn't have seen your brilliance or your dedication or the way you light up when you talk about building something meaningful. I wouldn't trade any of that to avoid some jealous jackass sending mean texts. You're very forgiving. I'm very sure about us. He pulled her closer on the patio couch. Morrison's problem is his own insecurity, not our relationship. And if anyone else has a problem with us being together, that's on them, not us. When did you get so wise? Single parenting forces you to develop perspective fast. He kissed her forehead. Speaking of which, how do you feel about meeting my mother on Sunday? Fair warning, she's already decided she loves you because Mia loves you, and she's going to ask a million questions about your intentions toward her son. I'm terrified and excited in equal measure. Lena laughed. What should I bring? Wine, flowers, a detailed 5-year plan for our relationship? Just yourself. She's going to love you. Sunday dinner at Evan's mother's house was everything he'd expected. Warm chaos, too much food, and his mother treating Lena like she was already part of the family. Patricia Brooks was a force of nature, barely 5 feet tall, but commanding the kitchen with the confidence of a general deploying troops. So you're the woman who's got my son walking on air, she said, pulling Lena into a hug before Evan could make proper introductions. I'm Pat. Come in, sit down, tell me everything. Lena handled it beautifully, answering questions with honesty and charm, admiring the photos of Evan as a child that his mother insisted on showing her, and winning Patricia over completely when she asked for the pot roast recipe. You want to learn to cook? Patricia looked delighted.
Evan said you were hopeless in the kitchen. I am, but I want to get better, especially if I'm going to be cooking for this family. Lena glanced at Evan, her expression soft. I want to contribute, not just show up for the finished product. I like her, Patricia announced to the room at large. She's a keeper. After dinner, while Mia helped her grandmother with dishes, a ritual she loved, Evan and Lena stepped out onto the back porch for air. His mother's house was in the suburbs, with a modest yard and the kind of quiet that felt like peace after the city's constant noise. Your mom is wonderful, Lena said, leaning against the porch railing. I can see where you get your kindness. She likes you too, I can tell. Good, because I'm nervous about family stuff. She turned to face him. I haven't had much practice at it. My relationship with my own family is complicated, distant. My sister and I talk maybe twice a year, usually just obligatory holiday calls. My dad's been out of the picture since I was a kid. It's just been me for so long. Well, you've got us now. Evan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. My mom, Mia, me. We're your family too if you want us. I want you. She covered his hands with hers. So much it scares me sometimes. Me too. But I think the scary things are usually the ones worth doing. They stood there watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and pinks, and Evan felt a contentment he hadn't known was possible. This was what he'd been missing, not just romance or partnership, but the sense of building something larger than himself, something that included room for everyone's dreams and fears and possibilities. Inside, he could hear Mia's laughter mixing with his mother's, could smell the lingering scent of pot roast and home. Beside him, in his arms, was the woman who'd somehow seen past his invisible exterior to the person underneath, who'd chosen him despite every rational reason not to. I love you, he said, because it needed to be said clearly, definitively. I'm in love with you, Lena Ward, completely, terrifyingly, wonderfully in love. She turned in his arms, her eyes bright. I love you too. I think I have since that first day on the beach when you caught me in the waves and looked at me like I was someone worth seeing. You are worth seeing, worth knowing, worth loving. So are you. She kissed him softly. Thank you for taking a chance on me. On us. Best decision I ever made. 3 months later, Evan stood in Mia's school auditorium, watching his daughter's art show and feeling like his life had become unrecognizable in the best possible way. Lena stood beside him, holding his hand, pointing out Mia's various projects with genuine enthusiasm and pride. That one's her ocean painting, she told his mother, who'd come for the event. She did it after our first trip to the coast together. See how she captured the way the light hits the water? His mother beamed, clearly delighted by Lena's investment in Mia's life. In the 3 months since that first Sunday dinner, Lena had become a regular presence at their apartment, at family dinners, at school events. She'd kept her promise about making space in her life, leaving work at reasonable hours most days, spending weekends with them instead of in her office. The innovation job had worked out better than Evan could have hoped. He'd enrolled in night classes to finish his engineering degree, with the company's tuition assistants covering most of the cost and Lena helping coordinate his schedule so he could manage work, school, and parenting. It was exhausting, but fulfilling, and for the first time in years he felt like he was building towards something rather than just surviving. Daddy, Miss Lena! Mia ran up to them, her face flushed with excitement. Did you see my painting? The one of our family? Your family? Patricia asked, curious. Mia dragged them over to a portrait she'd painted. 3 figures on a beach, clearly recognizable as herself, Evan, and Lena. They were holding hands and smiling, and in the corner Mia had written in careful letters, My Family, by Mia Brooks. Evan felt his throat tighten with emotion. Beside him, Lena had gone very still. That's us, Mia explained unnecessarily. We're a family now. The teacher said to paint what was important to us, and you guys are the most important. It's beautiful, sweetheart, Evan managed. It's perfect, Lena added, her voice thick. Can we have a copy when the show is over? You can have the real one. I made it for you, Mia hugged Lena fiercely. Because you're part of our family now, right? Right. Lena looked at Evan over Mia's head, and he saw his own emotion reflected there, joy and gratitude and the kind of love that felt too big for one heart to contain. Absolutely right. Later that night, after they dropped his mother at her house and put Mia to bed, Evan and Lena sat on the couch in his apartment reviewing the photos from the art show. Lena had insisted on buying Mia's ocean painting as well as the family portrait, claiming she needed art for her empty walls. "I've been thinking," she said, setting down her phone, "about what comes next for us." "Yeah?" Evan pulled her closer, her head resting on his shoulder. "My lease is up in 2 months, and I hate that house. It's never felt like home." She paused. "What would you think about finding a place together? Somewhere that's ours, not mine or yours, but ours. Big enough for all of us, with a yard for Mia to play in and room for you to have a proper office for studying." Evan's heart was pounding. "That's a big step." "I know, but we've been doing this for 3 months now, and it works. We work. I spend half my time here anyway, and you're at my place on weekends. We're basically already living together, just inefficiently." She turned to look at him. "Unless you think it's too fast, I don't want to pressure you." "It's not too fast." He'd been thinking the same thing, actually, but had been afraid to suggest it. "I want that. I want us under one roof, building a real life together." "Yeah?" Her smile was incandescent. "Yeah." He kissed her, slow and thorough. "Let's find our home." They spent the next weeks house hunting, dragging Mia to viewings on weekends and debating the merits of various neighborhoods. Lena wanted good schools and safety. Evan wanted affordability and reasonable commute times. Mia wanted a backyard big enough for a dog, which neither adult had agreed to yet but were clearly weakening on. They finally found it in a quiet neighborhood halfway between the city and the suburbs. A 4-bedroom craftsman with a big backyard, a front porch perfect for sitting on summer evenings, and enough space for everyone to have their own area while still feeling connected. It was more than Evan could have afforded alone, but well within their combined budget, and the moment they walked through the door, it felt right. "This is it," Lena said, standing in the empty living room and looking around with that expression Evan had learned meant she was already decorating it in her head. "This is home." "Are you sure? It needs work. The kitchen's outdated, the master bath needs renovating. So we'll fix it, together." She took his hand. "I'm not looking for perfect, Evan. I'm looking for ours." They closed on the house in early December, spending weekends painting and unpacking and slowly transforming the empty space into something that reflected all of them. Lena's designer furniture mixed with Evan's practical pieces and Mia's colorful additions. The refrigerator filled with family photos and Mia's artwork. The backyard got a swing set that Evan and Lena assembled together one Saturday, laughing at the incomprehensible instructions and celebrating with champagne when they finally got it standing. On Christmas Eve, their first in the new house, Evan stood in the kitchen watching Lena teach Mia how to make cookies from his mother's recipe. They were covered in flour and laughing at some joke he'd missed, and the whole scene was so perfectly domestic that his chest ached with happiness. His phone buzzed. A message from David at work. "Merry Christmas. Also wanted to give you a heads up. The senior engineering position is opening up in Q1. You should apply. You'd be perfect for it." Evan stared at the message, hardly believing it. Senior engineer. A position that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago when he'd been changing air filters and fixing leaky faucets. But he'd proven himself in innovation, had nearly completed his degree, had earned the respect of his colleagues on merit rather than connection. "Good news?" Lena asked, noticing his expression. "Maybe. David thinks I should apply for a senior position that's opening up." "You absolutely should." She didn't hesitate. "You're more than qualified. People might say you influenced the decision. Let them. You'll have earned it fair and square, and anyone who bothers to look at your work will see that." She crossed the kitchen to him, flour-dusted hands cupped around his face. "Stop doubting yourself. You're brilliant and capable, and you deserve every opportunity coming your way." "How did I get so lucky?" He pulled her close, mindful of Mia watching with interest. "To find you, to have this life, to have everything I didn't even know I wanted. We both got lucky." She kissed him softly.
Now come help us with these cookies before Mia decides they need an entire bottle of sprinkles. They definitely need an entire bottle of sprinkles, Mia called from the counter. See? Crisis. But Lena was laughing, pulling him toward the chaos and the joy and the beautifully imperfect life they were building together. Later that night, after Mia had finally crashed from sugar and excitement, after the cookies were cooled and the presents were arranged under the tree, Evan and Lena sat on their front porch watching the neighborhood lights and sipping hot chocolate. "Thank you," Evan said quietly, "for all of this, for choosing us, for being patient while we figured it out, for showing up every day even when it was hard. Thank you for letting me in, for seeing past the CEO to the person underneath, for giving me a family when I didn't even know how much I needed one." She set down her mug and turned to face him. "I have something for you. An early Christmas present. We said we weren't doing big gifts this year. This isn't big, it's just important." She pulled a small box from her pocket, and Evan's heart stopped. But when she opened it, it wasn't a ring. It was a key. "It's to the house," she explained. "I know you already have a key, but this one's different. Look at the tag." He lifted the key, reading the engraved words in the streetlight. "Home is wherever we're together." "I wanted you to know that this isn't my house that you're living in, or your house that I joined. It's ours. Completely, equally ours." Her voice was soft but certain. "You're not my employee or my project or someone I'm rescuing. You're my partner, my equal, the person I'm building a life with. And I wanted you to have something tangible that said that." Evan couldn't speak around the emotion clogging his throat, so he just pulled her into his arms and held on tight. They sat there wrapped together on their front porch, their home behind them and their future spreading out ahead like a promise. "I love you," he finally managed, "more than I knew it was possible to love someone." "I love you too." She pressed a kiss to his jaw. "Merry Christmas, Evan." "Merry Christmas, Lena." Inside through the window, they could see the Christmas tree they'd decorated together, its lights twinkling cheerfully. Upstairs, Mia was sleeping soundly, probably dreaming of presents and possibilities. And here on the porch, two people who'd started as strangers sat wrapped in each other and the life they'd chosen, the complications they'd navigated, and the love they'd built from nothing but courage and hope. It wasn't perfect. There would be challenges ahead. Juggling careers and parenting, managing public scrutiny, navigating the inevitable rough patches that came with blending lives. But they'd face it together, as partners, as equals, as a family. And that, Evan thought as Lena's breathing evened out into sleep against his shoulder, was more than enough. It was everything. The coastal retreat that had brought them together felt like a lifetime ago, but its lessons remained. Sometimes the most profound transformations came from the smallest moments. A hand steadying you in the surf, a shared sandwich on a beach, a 7-year-old's wisdom about real smiles versus fake ones. Sometimes you had to be brave enough to be seen, to step out of invisibility and into the light of possibility. Sometimes love arrived not with fanfare, but with quiet certainty, building itself from shared moments and daily choices, from showing up and staying present and choosing each other again and again. As Christmas Eve deepened into Christmas morning, Evan carried his sleeping girlfriend inside, locked their door, and climbed the stairs to their bedroom in their house, in their life, in their beautifully imperfect and perfectly real happily ever after.